Today is Tuesday, July 11, 2023. It is 9 a.m. We're going to call this Los Animas County Board of County Commissioners meeting to order, and I'm going to ask everyone to please stand for an invocation given by Commissioner Tony Haas, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Luis Lopez.
Lord, thank you very much for the appreciated moisture. We come before you offering our thanks for bringing us together safely. As we prepare for this meeting, we ask that you would be with us. May our thoughts be led by you and our conversations be inspired by you. Help us to put our own agendas aside and seek your will and outcome for this meeting. Please grant us the wisdom in times of uncertainty and charity in times of confusion. Lead us to the solutions. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen, and welcome once again to everyone. Roll call, Mr. Dorncap.
Commissioner Hess, here. Commissioner Luis Lopez.
I'm here.
Commissioner Luis Lopez.
I'm here. Approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
No changes. Yes, excuse me, Commissioner, one change.
One change.
I'd like to move item 8G to the beginning of 8, new business. We won't change it.
It'll be first.
Correct.
Any questions, any discussion, commissioners? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval of the agenda.
Second. Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Thank you, yes. Consideration of minutes, we don't have any. We're going to go to section 3, reading of correspondence, Commissioner Committee reports. Commissioner Luis Lopez, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Chairman, and welcome everyone today being here. My report will consist of a few meetings I've held regarding different boards we serve. Front Range Passenger Rail met on the 23rd of June. We are moving forward with public outreach. We have a lot of responses to the outreach that we have here at Trinidad State College, and moving forward with consultants and our safety development plan. The leg from Pueblo to Trinidad is still being researched on how we can get funding or negotiations with BNSF to coexist on that rail. And since we were having a holiday up the following week, the Front Range Passenger Rail Finance Committee, which I serve upon, was postponed until this one. We will be having a retreat in Boulder in July, so I'll be trying to attend either in person or virtually, and discuss with the County of Boulder regarding the A train and how that could possibly be part of the ballot measure included if we move forward with such in the future. So that'll be coming up soon. On the 28th of June, I was able to attend the Animas district meeting with Deputy Chief Trey, who's with us today. And basically, I was there just to observe one of the meetings we hadn't seen Chief Moreno or report, and that's what I recommended to them that they start those coming again on a quarterly basis to the county commissioners. So just an update of where they're at, just for transparency issues for the community and for the media to have an opportunity here, since their meetings are kind of not on a regular schedule, what most people would attend to, like the city of Trinidad or the county commission. So, Chief Trey, thank you for having me that night and for allowing me to be there. And sorry I had to leave early because I went to the next meeting, which is the homeless meeting, held at the Space to Create. A lot of individuals were there, including Michael Aragon with the Department of Human Services. Mr. Aragon, thank you for being there from the county, and Mr. Dorncap as well. And we had a discussion with many individuals, including the minister of the local church that helps feed the homeless on a daily basis. There was some discussions made on how to move forward with the issues that we face with the homeless numbers, and not so much the issue of the actual physical number of homeless, more so of the couch surfers, so to speak, in totality of numbers of somewhat homeless people as over 250 plus individuals in Los Animas County, which is quite amazing. I was quite shocked to hear that number, that we had that many individuals that are in need of services in our community. So there was some discussion with the chief of police, Charlie Glorioso, and discussion with the property the county owns inside the city limits. It was, I notified them that this board could possibly entertain discussion coexisting with the city and some sort of shelter for the homeless at that point was determined by some members, including the chief of police, that possibly would not be big enough for the amount of homeless that we have. So back to the drawing board next, I think on the next meeting is the 20th, space to create, and we'll see how we can assist moving forward with this issue. Also on the 30th, myself and Bob Lucero, with our planning and zoning and our oil and gas, met with Mayor Phil Rico and Mayor Pro Tem Aaron Ogletree to discuss the future of our white paper for the oil, the gas pipeline, the Kinder Morgan pipeline that runs from between here and Otero County and the Pino Canyon military base. So we are starting the discussions of how to move forward in getting that procedure and work accomplished. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Hatch.
Chair, in the essence of time, I'm going to report on one meeting that I had.
Sir.
For those of you that don't know, I was appointed to the WOTUS task force by former Governor Hickenlooper. That's the waters of the U.S. And many of you probably understand that the EPA has been frantically trying to implement new rules and regs before the Sackett ruling came out. In 2007, Michael Sackett, who ran an excavation company, sought to develop property near Priest Lake in Idaho Panhandle. The EPA halted his work and said that Sackett was damaging a federal wetland. The Sackett sued, and some 14 years later, last month actually, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Sacketts that this wetland wasn't subject to EPA regulation, and that long-regulated wetlands suddenly were beyond the scope of this agency's regulatory authority. So yesterday we had our meeting, our post-meeting after the Sackett hearing, and it was a very robust discussion that revolved around the U.S. Supreme Court ruling. And the Supreme Court ruling directs the power to the state and local authorities, promoting a major shift in wetland oversight. This ruling will prompt major changes to how permitting operates while scaling back requirements and freeing up development opportunities nationwide. The challenge now, in my opinion, will be to protect ag with exemptions and exclusions. The federal government hands are tied now. Many states like Maryland and Washington will beef up wetland protections, while states like Wyoming and South Dakota are less stringent now and will probably be more or less stringent. Look for Colorado to be somewhere in the middle. As of yesterday, we were informed that some of us that have been sitting on this task force would no longer be allowed to participate. We have to register for every meeting that we have there because it's a federal meeting. And some of us won't be able to participate. So my question to them was, last meeting that we had, I told them that I believe we needed to slow down our approach or put the cart before the horse because we didn't have a Sackett ruling at the time. And I knew that the Sackett ruling, or I suspected that the Sackett ruling would carry tremendous weight and that it would affect everybody nationwide on the ruling. And as we can see that because of that ruling, it's going to. So we'll see if I get invited to sit on any of the future meetings. That's my report, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you both of you for that report. Real quick as well, I want to make an announcement at 10 a.m. We're going to have a public hearing. And regardless of where we are on the agenda. We'll take a small recess for us to get into the public hearing that is going to be addressing the wind project that's coming, the proposed wind project for the Kim area. So a couple of things. I want to give a huge shout out to our firefighters, to the local responders, to the sheriff on the Titan fire that we had. I have had an opportunity to drive the area and certainly visit with so many constituents, and they're grateful and they're saying thank you back to all of you. Of course, to the state, to the federal resources that we have here. That fire, the first evening, had the potential of consuming several thousands of acres with the wind that was going on. And in 3 days, that fire was completely extinguished. We had a lot of rain. That was just a point that it was almost a miracle as far as I can see. You can see rain on the fire around the perimeter. And so the final report, I believe it's still under 1,000 acres that were consumed. But that is a huge, huge partnership between the state of Colorado, the local firefighters, the sheriff, every one of the agencies that participated from here. So thank you to all of you, and from the bottom of the heart of all the constituents of Los Animas County, we say thank you. Please, sir.
Kim, when you had that new tender out there, that was fun to see that new big tender working out there. It kind of put everybody else's to shame. Thanks for saying it.
Thank you. Grant money is really awesome. The one really brief comment also, we met with the financial audit representative with the auditor yesterday, and very pleased to say that the county, once again, is on the perspective of being solid financially. So thank you to our finance director and team of Los Animas County for keeping an eye on all the expenditures. The county is doing phenomenal. So thank you to all, and we're going to leave the report at that. So now we're going to go to elected officials update. Do we have anyone from, I know Jody Amaro is on the road, and she'll be available here in a while.
She's actually on.
Oh, Jody. Yes, good morning. How are you? Where are you at? Hawaii or? We can't hear you. Let me see here.
Yeah, hold on, your audio is not on.
Can you hear me now, gentlemen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm actually in the big city of Hugo at the moment. We had a last minute switch and I had to bring our Branson Kim volleyball team to Hugo, so I left Trinidad at 4 this morning. So my only update is, I believe at this time we have 5 people that have gone on to the County Board of Equalization. I just want to remind the public, if they're listening, they have till the 15th to submit their petitions to the County Board of Equalization. That's all I have at this moment.
Thank you, and we'll be reaching out to you here at 10 a.m. Thank you, Jody. Do we have anyone from the Clerk and Recorder's Office? Anyone from the Treasurer's Office?
Good morning. This is Donna. I have nothing to report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, and have a great day. Anyone from the Sheriff's Office? I'd like to invite anyone from the District Attorney's Office. Anyone from the Coroner's Office? Okay, thank you. Now we're going to go to section 5, public comment. This particular, I see some names here that have signed up. I believe this is going to be probably for the public hearing. Am I correct? Public hearing, okay. So we have, let me just confirm, those of you that signed, Rick, I can't read your last name, sir. Welcome, Commissioner Rick Butler from Baca County, and all the team that's here. Mr. Yoka, welcome, Bill Yoka, and then Colton Butler. I believe that's going to be for the public hearing that we're going to have at 10 a.m. Okay, so now, Public comment at this time, do we have anyone on the audience and or anyone online that wishes to address the Board of County Commissioners? And you have 3 minutes. Okay, one more time, do we have anyone in the audience and or online that wishes to address the Board of County Commissioners? You have 3 minutes. Raise your hand, unmute. Seeing none, we're going to go now to Section 7. Unfinished business, we do not have any. We're going to jump into Section 8. New business, consideration of liquor license. Thank you, Mr. Lopez. We're going to go to Section 8, new business, and we're going to invite the consideration of Trinidad Ambulance District 2023-24 RECA grant application. Thank you, Commissioner Lopez. I really appreciate that oversight. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Commissioners, thank you for moving me up. We got plenty of meetings, as you guys all know. That's usually what consumes our day. So we've been pretty busy. Just to give an update, and Commissioner Lopez, it was nice to see you at our meeting. Although trying to keep day-to-day operations running, we're also working on the new building, which has been a 4-year endeavor with the USDA and the unbelievable things that just keep coming up, trying to deal with the federal government and the loan process. So we're hoping within the next couple of weeks we'll have groundbreaking, couple 3 weeks, and invite you all out for that. Just so you know, we purchased the Power Sports building from Tony. We're going to take that from 19,500 square feet, put that up to 25,000 square feet, house our total operations from that, and be able to hold all of our things under one roof. We've outgrown our training facility there on Robinson, and then ultimately we'll be looking at selling the Robinson property once we get moved and everything else like that. So a couple other things that are going on. We are looking at moving forward with Health Service District designation. We are in the process of that. And that is so that we can offer community paramedicine. Community paramedicine will bring more healthcare options and reduced cost options to our constituents in the county. So that'll be basically what that looks like is on lower acuity calls, we can send out our community paramedic. They can do a telemedicine with an actual doctor over our communication devices. They can write prescriptions, they can schedule appointments, all that kind of stuff. So we're really looking forward to that. Help reduce some of the overloading of ERs and actually give people options out in the eastern part of the county and the western part of the county that don't always are able to get that health care. So we'll be looking at that and very excited to do that. There's 6 of us paramedics that are, I just started my community paramedic course yesterday. So it'll be a 10-week course, and then we'll set the boards to be an additional provider on our certificates. So that's kind of a little bit in a nutshell. Other than that, day-to-day operations, we're still consumed with issues with trying to get vehicles. We've had one from Ford canceled, and we do have one on the ground in Alabama. Problem is now is they're saying that isn't going to be ready to be completed until, they initially said September 2024, which is not an option, so I think we've talked them into at least the first quarter of 2024. So it's not only getting the vehicles, it's actually getting the work done to getting the vehicles on the road. So obviously same thing that's affecting you all, rising costs, fuel, those type of things. The other thing is we're looking at switching from diesel-powered engines to gas, just due to the fact of the emissions and the problems we're having with keeping those on the road. Most of those vehicles we try to keep in town. So they spend a lot of time idling, clogging up those filters, and so we have a hard time trying to keep those on the road. So we'll be looking at that eventually.
Chairman, I mean, Deputy Chief, thank you for being here today. And I'd like to just remind the board of a little bit of past history with Deputy Chief Dutray as a fire, mentioning the fires today. 5 years ago, was it? You were the
2018.
You was the chief of the Levita Fire Department fighting the spring fire. And you continue to serve your community, Chief. Thank you very much in this capacity now. So I want to just say a big thank you for all of your years of service to Los Animas County, Northfield County, and our region. So that's number one. Thank you for having me the other night at your ambulance meeting. I really was able to get caught up on the building to discuss today and move forward the grants. I know exactly what you mean when we did the ambulance. We did the local hospital grant years ago for the expansion and the $35 million renovation. Mrs. Coverly and this team went through a lot of headaches, and Ms. Nelson, our attorney, getting all that accomplished and moving forward to our new facility. And so I look forward to seeing the facility for the ambulance district there. Thank you for the update on the health service issue that will need to come before, I believe, the Board of County Commissioners, but we're ready. We'll be here to listen to it and guide you through that point. The RETAC grant, I really appreciate you guys coming for us to go after these grants as much as possible, because what it does in return, even though it's not a large amount of money, when you get your new vehicles, when you get these other things, this little bit of revenue will help you offset some of your expenditures, but it will also give you an opportunity to give back to the community, such as you've done in the past to our KIM ambulance districts with equipment and our vehicles, and we hope to see that continue in the future. So commendable. Thank you guys for what you do for taking care of the citizens of Los Animas County and transporting and making sure we're safe along with the rest of our personnel. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
So the other thing with that grant, so Commissioner Lopez actually brought that up. So we do not cover the KIM fire district. So Kim does a great job. And Nikki out there does her very best. I know she probably loses more sleep than the game night sometimes. But this grant also, like you said, covers medical direction for all of Los Animas County, including Kim Fire Protection District, volunteer district. So that is what that money's used for. Last year, the last 2 years, we were able to give $20,000. This year it's only $15,000. So last year we were able to give that extra $5,000 to Nikki, and I know that's going forward to help with a cardiac monitor and those type of things. She did get her grant, so that should be moving forward. So yeah, we're happy to be part of Los Animas County and help wherever we can.
Thank you, sir. And one quick question on the community response that you mentioned. Is every one of the EMS technicians being trained on that?
No. So ultimately, we're working off of UPass, UPRAD in Teller County. They've been working with this for approximately 12 years. So the other thing that it does is it bridges a gap in behavioral health as well. So their community paramedics, once we get on board, our vision in the future is to have that community paramedic in a vehicle by themselves, separate from the actual responding ambulance. And then those lower acuity calls, whether it be in the county or the city, and their behavioral health calls, those typically in Teller County are run with a community paramedic and a police officer. So the police officer is there for the safety. What happens is they, once again, telemedicine. We get them on the iPad. They get with a board-certified clinician. They figure out if they need emergency treatment, they need to be put on hold, whatever it may be, and then they get taken to that treatment right away. So it's not just I got a fever, I got a sprained ankle, those type of things. It's actually moving into more behavioral medicine as well, which we all know that system is broken. And that's one way that we're seeing that we can actually help and bring some more services to the county.
You probably already did this, but the DHA, the Cable Administration, they are going to be giving out so many grants, and one of the, I go to those meetings very frequently, and one of the requests that I have made to them is to make those funds available to the rural communities as well. So let's work together and see what funds. Very good. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you. Have a great day, and on to your next meeting, sir.
Thank you.
We'll go to the next item. Oh, yes. Let me get that myself this morning. I'll make a motion to approve that. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion, go ahead. Motion to approve the Trinidad Animas District 2023-24 pre-tax grant application.
Second motion?
Commissioner Reese Lopez.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Fix.
Yes. Going to the next item, consideration of liquor license renewal for the Purple Bar and Pizzeria. Mr. Doran Captain or Madam Council? Commissioners, any discussion?
Chairman, I have a concern. I'd like to bring it before this board to see if we have any issue moving forward with this, or if we want to allow my concerns to be addressed by the applicant. The concern I have, and council, please advise or think we can table or something. The issue that I have over the past few years, this liquor license owner has been subleasing out the business, and another individual has been purchasing the alcohol under their other business in the Trinidad community, which is, as far as I'm concerned, a big red flag. We cannot be purchasing alcohol from a checkbook that does not read the applicant's name. Now, it's not illegal, it's unethical, that's from what I understand. But if this continues on, are we doing our due diligence in awarding this liquor license to allow this type of grayish activity? So I know it'd probably be the burden on the owner of the licensee of any violations that occur from the state of Colorado. I just want to make sure we don't have any position here, or can we ask and table this so we can have the applicant come and address my concerns? And I know we can't get legal advice out in the open session.
I don't think we've got advice out of the position. I will let you know the last time we have concerns with the license, we table it and bring it back for
Having heard the information, do you have any questions or concerns? If not, then we'll.
I prefer, Commissioner, at this point in time, I will entertain a motion either to, any motion of the closer.
I would like to entertain a motion to table the license renewal for the Broker Wall Water Pizzeria for public hearing.
Second motion. Commissioner Hess. Yes. Commissioner Reese Lopez.
Yes.
Commissioner Fix.
Yes. Consideration of change order 22R005, number 8, storm drain of Maple Street entrance. Mr. Dorncott.
Commissioner, for your consideration is change order number 8. For our project 22R005, as the same happened when the contractor, our retaining wall replacement, started excavating on the south side of the Maple Street entrance to the courthouse, when a lot of moist earth. Further investigation found that a 4-inch storm drain line was placed inside an 8-inch. There's not a lot of fall in the 8-inch. It goes underneath the steps. The steps are poured basically solid, so water is coming back out the 8-inch inlet piece. The storm drain water comes off the roof of the courthouse, causing, I don't know if you folks noticed that our ADA sidewalk, we came up to the entrance and actually dropped some. We had like a 1-inch lip there that Main Street ground off. But we had issues there, so I asked the board, similar to what happened on the north side of the courthouse entrance when the contractor got in there with storm lines busted, with lines through them, with sewer lines busted, et cetera, et cetera. I'd ask the board to approve this $16,600 change order so we can get the drainage issues resolved. And I'm hoping, crossing my fingers and toes that we don't run into any other issues. We shouldn't on this project, but we may on projects on the east side of the courthouse if we get to those in and out, so I can
Commissioner Arquette, were we able to, was the contractor able to get that bid?
Commissioner, still a work in progress, as someone else had alluded to earlier today. To get materials and products and stuff like that has been a challenge. And I guess was assisted that we procured vehicles, but no, we have not.
So, just for the record, I believe the bid that we were looking at was about an $80,000 bid purchase, and for to accomplish this goal without having to go further. This was going to be obtained by the contractor in charge of the county. So waiting is probably better than $8,000 at this point.
Correct. There were some other options. We talked about lining the pipe. Lining the pipe still would allow us to plug where the 4 inches going into the 8-inch. So that wasn't going to be simple. I think that was going to project a cost of $18,000. There were some other options, as you alluded to, that would have cost us more like this or what. They're going to end up doing the concrete is actually going to intersect the water coming off of this one storm line, intersect it and bring it underneath one of our foundation walls, and then out through the foundation wall, and it goes up to Maple Street. So that's why that is necessary. We've also talked about maybe getting a 3/4 inch bit and drilling through both of those foundation walls and then knocking the plug out. He wants to use these contractor in particular for anything. He wants it to be a nice smooth hole so that we can drive it without having a lot of mess with this.
Now, Chairman and Board, I appreciate the efforts of this contractor going through the lengths to save the county money. And to make sure we get this done right, the county's already implemented quite a bit of money for the stabilization of this beautiful courthouse over the past 3 years, and I'm sure he's had a hiccup in it now. The part one has been done in stabilization and beautification of this building, so thank you, sir.
And the initial, I see there, the initial expense is going to be around $16,000 for this correction.
Yes, it would be $16,600.
You know, I want to share this comment with my fellow commissioners. We were in Denver last week doing a presentation to DOLA, and we gave an incredible update of what's happening with this beautiful building, as you expressed. And I think it's on us to make sure that the detail, even to its perspective point, is delivered in a manner that's really accurate. So, thank you, Mr. Doricamp. Any other dialogue discussion? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve change order 22R005 with raised storm drains south of Maple Street entrance.
Second the motion?
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Reese Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Biggs Lopez?
Yes. Yes. asphalt and emulsion to reflect actual quantities placed, Mr. Dorncott.
Commission, before you for your consideration, change order number 3, project 23, R002, for the actual emulsion and asphalt that was placed in this project. And the actual totals of the asphalt placed was 3,059.84 tons, and the actual emulsion placed was 1,280 gallons versus 1,097 gallons, which is what we estimated, and 3,047 tons, which is what we estimated. So that's the board to approve this. We're still within our budget. We have 1.5 million budgeted for this. This brings the total cost of the project to $1,504,252.68.
So if we're reading that it's $3,000 difference,
8,000, 4,000 over budget.
You have the 4,000.
Pardon me?
You have the 4,000 to cover it?
We had the 4,000, I'd rather go over budgets on these projects than under because it's DOLA funded, half of it's DOLA funded. We want to use some other funds.
any other?
Sure.
Thank you. We can never be too sure, right? Any other discussion? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval of the change order 23R002, number 3, increase in asphalt emulsion to reflect actual quantities placed.
Second motion?
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes. 8B, consideration of resolution 23-016L1 Solar LLC. Mr. Dorncott.
Commissioner, before you read considerations, resolution 23-016, the Alpine Solar resolution that the board approved, and approved that the resolution approved the special use permit at your past meeting.
Thank you, sir. And the conditions that were placed at the time of the approval are part of the resolutions. Would you please read the resolution, Mr. Dorncott?
Resolution of the Board of County Commission of Los Angeles County, Colorado, entering a determination on special use permit application number 2023-003. Upland Solar LLC Resolution 23-016. Whereas issue B 2023-003 was filed by Upland Solar LLC, a wholly owned subsidiary of Cypress Creek Renewable LLC, seeking approval for a proposed facility located about 8.6 miles east of the town of Aguilar, approximately 2,081 acres of leased private land in parts of sections 6, 7, 8, 17, and 18, Township 30 South, Range 63 West, and parts of section 12 of Township 30 South, Range 64 West. The project consists of up to 200 megawatts of clean renewable solar energy and 100 megawatt of battery energy storage. And whereas Los Angeles County's Planning Commission reviewed special use permit number 2023-003 as meeting held on April 3, 2023 and May 1, 2023, and recommend approval to the Board of County Commission with conditions that the application was in compliance with all Colorado laws, and that the bond was reviewed every 5 years. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners held a public hearing on June 20, 2023 at which time the public was afforded opportunity to comment on special use permit number 2023-003. Now therefore be resolved by the Board of County Commissioners Los Angeles County, Colorado, that one findings, the Board of County Commissioners find that Elk Solar LLC has met all conditions set forth in the Los Angeles County Land Use Code, applicable to special use permit application number 2023-003. 2, determination, the Board of County Commissioners hereby approves with conditions as set forth below special use permit application 2023-003 filed by Elk Solar LLC. Proposed facility that is located on 8.6 miles east of town of Aguilar, Colorado, approximately 2,081 acres of leased private land consisting of up to 200 megawatts of clean renewable solar energy and 100 megawatts of battery energy storage. Conditions of this approval are as follows. 1, the applicants or any party to whom the permit may be sold, transferred, or otherwise assigned shall A, should the project be as all times in compliance with all state laws and regulations, including those for negotiations with mineral owners. B, develop and submit an emergency management / fire response plan Board of County Commissioners that includes the input of a consultation with Los Animas County Emergency Manager, local fire departments, and the health department. Should the plan is updated every 5 years or sooner, the type of battery used changes. C, provide training to local fire departments and emergency responders for fires related to lithium and/or any other battery type to be used in the facility. Should the training is updated at least every 5 years or sooner, the type of battery used changes. D, revise and update the bond every 5 years and ensure it is ready to survive resale, transfer, or other assignment. E, provide updates to the Board of County Commission regarding the project every 5 years and renew the bond. F, provide written notice to the Board of County Commission, plan director, emergency management within 24 hours of the emergency incident that takes place in the project. G, as storage facility to store the chemicals needed to fight any fire related to any batteries stored in the area. The storage facilities to be located within the fenced area of the project and at the furthest distance from the battery storage as is feasible. On motion made to second further vote, this resolution was adopted this 11th day of July 2023 by the Board of County Commission, Los Angeles County, Colorado, following by your signature.
Sir, Commissioners, any questions, discussions? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
Just one comment, Chairman. I did receive an email from one of the mineral rights owners after the hearing, and I would just like to thank the board for putting this in this resolution to ensure in item 1A, ensure the project is in compliance with all state law and regulations, including those for negotiation with mineral owners. It is in place for his protection, and that concern has been addressed. So I'd like to put that on the record for that gentleman who had those concerns at this time. I have no other questions or concerns.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Hess, otherwise I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve resolution 23-016, Alpine Solar LLC.
Second motion.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Weaselton?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes. Consideration of county court judge bench replacement contract with Alpha Design, Mr. Dorian.
Commissioner, sometime back we sought and were successful in receiving UFF underfunded courts monies to look at redesigning and hopefully we get more funding when it comes to the actual construction of our county court judges bench, like I would describe it. We submitted an RFQ. We have one response that came from Alpha Design, and that is before you. I'd ask the board to approve their submittal. Their total proposed fee is $11,800 for the entire scope of work, and we have 30 money funded to deliver.
One question, Chair. Mr. Dorian, has the county court approved the design and they're okay with this at this point?
The draft design, yes, but part of this, the RFQ and Alpha Design's work will be to come up with an actual design that is all the ADA requirements and gives the judge what he needs or she needs, plus witness stands and revamping the whole.
And this is the beginning stages of the design phase. So they will be working in tandem with the person.
Thank you, sir. And I like on that paragraph that the fee includes just about everything and no additional expenses are anticipated. So change orders, let's keep in mind that Commissioner Hess.
I'm good with that too.
Okay, any other discussion? Otherwise I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval of the county court judge's bench replacement contract with Alpha Design.
Second motion.
Commissioner Weaselton?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes. Consideration of courthouse phase 2 improvement certificate of final completion, Mr. Dorian.
Commissioner, for your consideration is courthouse phase 2 improvement certification, final completion. We did a walkthrough, we myself, Maintenance Supervisor Kim Bowman, consultant, a month or so back, and did a check off list, and I believe everything's been taken care of that. I've been up to that one. So that's the board to approve this certification of final completion for our courthouse phase 2. And those improvements, just for the audience, were for replacement of the windows and electrical upgrades. It was paid for by underfunded boards, outside Animas County, and by the Department of Public Affairs, Energy, and Environment.
So one of the questions I have, and that's going to be probably on as we have all the panels removed on some of the windows, eventually we'll continue to work with the same contractor to replace those panels where we have portable air units.
That's correct. With the portable air units, once we get the HVAC system in place, we're successful with those grant applications. Then yes, we will pull those panels out that accommodate window air conditioning units, so we can solid and time key the window contractor. We're working hand in hand with our maintenance.
As you did the walkthrough, were there any with the last earthquake that we experienced in this part of the state? Any cracked windows, any damage?
No cracked windows that brought to our attention, just one leaky hole in the window in my office.
So the foundation stabilization is working so very good. Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain the motion.
Are we looking for bulletproof window man for the county administrator?
I'm moving the office.
I move for approval of the courthouse phase 2 improvement certificate of final completion.
Second motion.
Mr. Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mr. Felix Lopez?
Yes. Consideration of a CGRS site characterization report proposal. Mr. Cronica?
Commission, before you for your consideration is site characterization report proposal for fairgrounds facility and fielding facility. We had a minor spill, I believe the morning of when the state inspector showed up. So this is to fill out all the paperwork. The cleanup's already taken place, took place right after the incident. But this is to get through all the state's paperwork we need to get through. And CGRS has helped us in the past, we engage their services for this also.
And that is on the replacement of the fuel lines at the county fairgrounds.
No, sir, this is actually for a spill that happened at our diesel plant. Apparently, I don't know what happened in one spill. We had a spot, the diesel spill spot out there, 5 feet diameter. We had to, and this part of the cleanup is to do all the paperwork, and this all. A lot of paperwork when it comes to these types of spills, GCRSs.
So was it during the transfer to Mel of the tanker delivery, or was it?
It was at our dispensing unit. It was probably a truck.
So maybe possibly in the future we could entertain some services to maybe CTSI or training or something like that, possibly. Maybe any insurance increases possibly. I don't know if they offer anything like that.
Good morning.
I know they do training, but I don't know for procedures like that, but it's something we can look into, at least to make sure that we don't have expenditures like that in the future.
Point I'll check into do it.
Accidents happen, I get it.
And the cost for that?
$9,460.
Any other questions, comments, commissioners? Otherwise, I will entertain the motion.
Motion to approve CGRS site characterization report proposal. Second motion.
Commissioner Haas?
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes. It is 9:50. The commissioners wish to have a recess before the public hearing, otherwise we can entertain another item.
Make a motion to take a 10-minute recess before the public hearing.
Second motion.
Commissioner Haas?
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes.
Recording in progress.
Audio check, Sean. Audio check. Thanks, Sean. Commission.
Chairman, make a motion to resume regularly scheduled Board of County Commissioners meeting at this time.
Second motion.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Felix Lopez?
Yes, and good morning, everyone. It is now 10 a.m. on this Tuesday, July 11, 2023. We're going to call this public hearing to order. And I'm going to read some instructions before we get started on this. And so anyone that is that wishes to give testimony on this particular project, pro or con, will have to come out to the podium and be sworn in by our counsel. The following protocol is going to be followed. We're going to hear from the proponents first, and then we'll hear from any opponents thereafter. And those of you that are going to be sworn in, I encourage you to stay in the room because we might have follow-up questions, either pro or con. So, and as a matter of courtesy, be respectful and address the board and the questions to the proponents or the opponents in a respectful manner, and then any and all dialogue will be germane to the project. So if there is any appointed time that we start going off topic, I will go ahead and get us back on track. So, and you have, in a sense, the opportunity to address this board. As your public servants, we are, in a sense, basically are going to be managing and mediating this meeting. So welcome once again to all of you. And from that perspective, I think we will begin the meeting, and we're going to start with the proponents of the meeting, and anyone and all of you that are going to be proposing this particular project, please stand up, and I want you to come to the podium to be sworn in by our legal counsel. Who do we have first from Next Era Project? Give me 1 second. I'm getting ahead of myself. Just a time. Let me read the project and the purpose as well. The public hearing, application HUP 2023-004. Can you hear me all the way back to the room? Can you hear well? Okay. By Las Animas Wind LLC, a wholly owned indirect subsidiary of Next Era Energy Resources, is currently proposing to construct, operate, and maintain in Las Animas maintain the Las Animas Wind Project in Las Animas and Baca counties, north of King, Colorado, and west of Pritchett, Colorado. The entire project consists of up to 440 wind turbine generators across Las Animas and Baca counties. Solar facilities with generating capacity of up to 500 megawatts located in Baca County only, together with a pad mount transformers and underground electrical collection system. Project substations, private gravel access roads, a permanent performance meteorologic data collection towers, permanent aircraft detection lighting system towers, and above ground transmission, interconnected line, and other ancillary facilities. The portion of the project in Las Animas County will be located across approximately 105,000 acres of private land, private and state land in eastern Las Animas County, all of which is zoned agriculture. The proposed special use permit will not change the zoning, but if granted, will allow for a non-conforming use within the zone, not otherwise allowed without a special use permit. So that is going to be the purpose of this meeting. And so at this point in time, I'd like to invite any one of the proponents to please raise your hand, come forward to be sworn in.
If we're about to speak, we need to be sworn in?
Sure.
Oh.
Absolutely. Yes. Madam Council. Oh. You know what? Yes, Mr. Lucero. Well, let's go ahead and hear from your group first. Thank you, Madam Council.
The testimony you're about to give will lead the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please state your name.
Robert Lucero. Planning Commission heard this project on April the 3rd for the Planning Commission. We had several meetings with just kind of staff for the past 2 or 3 years with the company. After a lengthy discussion, the Planning Commission originally made a motion to approve the project. That would include an updated land use agreement, a noxious weed plan be included prior to going to the Board of County Commissioners, and the decommissioning cost, salvage value cost to be reviewed every 5 years by the Los Angeles County Board of County Commissioners with a mechanism for the bond increase if cost increase. That motion died for lack of second. Another motion was made by one of the other members to defer the making a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. It was voted on and passed. After they did that, I mentioned to them that you can't send it on to the Board of County Commissioners. As a planning commission, you have 3 options. You have an option to approve, deny, or approve with conditions. So what they have to do is they came back, the person that made that motion rescinded his motion, was seconded and voted on to rescind that motion. Then another motion was made to go back with the original motion, and they got a second, and that was approved. It was voted a 2-to-1 vote. So 2 voted for it, approval, 1 voted against it.
Mr. Lucero, on the bonding to take place every 5 years, someplace within documentation of the document, it says that after 15 years of operation, then the bond will be adjusted thereafter every 5 years. Is that not?
No, it's intention to, from when they start the project, every 5 years,
Then for the
they need to come before the board to review that bond, make sure it's adequate with a mechanism to adjust the bond.
From your perspective of communications with all of the surrounding mineral right owners, was every one of them notified?
As far as I'm aware, they were. There was a lot of notices that went out. Matter of fact, they went out twice. It was gone out. It's a requirement for our planning commission. We have our public hearing. The applicant did send them out before the Board of County Commissioner meeting also, which is not a requirement. On a courtesy, they did send mineral owners and surface owners as far as I'm aware.
So from the perspective of the county's responsibility, should there be anyone out there that was not communicated, would it be the responsibility of the proponent of the project to continue to secure communication from every one of those mineral right owners? Is that your understanding?
Yeah, they whatever address, as far as contacts go, whatever the assessor has, is the address they use to mail these letters out. In some cases, there may be 4 or 5 members on that, in a trust fund or something. So one person may get a letter, and if he doesn't inform the others, it's not their responsibility to try and find addresses for the rest of them. It would be up to whoever received that notice that's based on the assessor records, then we should notify the rest of the members that are on that.
Chairman, if I may just, Mr. Lucero, thank you for being here in your testimony today. I believe we had the same kind of issue at our last public hearing for the Elkwood Solar Farm that we approved today by resolution. Refresh my memory regarding mineral right owners and notification to them will not interfere, or is it under statute that is required, or is it not a requirement by our local county land use?
Mineral owners have reasonable ability to develop those minerals. This one, in my opinion, is a little different from a solar project, because a solar project takes up a solid amount of property. These wind towers are going to take up, there's going to be 2 to 3 per section, which is, and those 3, if you did 3, it's going to take up roughly about 6 acres. So you're still going to have about 634 acres of open where you can, there's going to be, if you need to drill for Acadia gas or anything like that.
But is there a state requirement or state statute for notification to these, or there's no legal notification required?
Just from our end, from the county end, they have to notify mineral owners.
But no statute?
But no statute. That I'm aware of. I think their timeline I think there is a timeline. I think they have to notify mineral owners 30 days prior to the meeting. We only require 14 days.
So basically a good faith practice and being a good neighbor to the landowner of the property. Thank you.
And we also addressed the decommissioning of those solar. Could you refresh my memory of what we have in our land use policy about decommissioning of these wind towers?
We did redo our decommissioning, but it doesn't affect this project because we did it after they submitted.
Is there, and I was reading through the policies, land use documents that we have, is there a responsibility as the applicant goes through the land use to do a migratory research of any wildlife through the proposed area? And if so, were there any migratory corridors identified within the study?
Yeah, there is in the application, because I think they've been in contact with Division of Wildlife, as far as endangered species and things like that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lucero, I don't think we have any more questions at this point in time, but please remain available should there be any additional questions, please. Thank you. And pardon the discrepancy earlier. Now, please, yes.
Chris Hollis, Mr. Energy Resources. Both of us at the same
time.
All right.
You saw
Dion Watson, Director of Engineering.
Can you say your name again?
Dion Watson, Director of Development Engineering.
I'm Siri. Pleased to meet you.
You solemnly affirm under the penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
which one of them is this year? Yeah. Test.
It's not.
Check.
We'll stand up. Oh, God. Let me share my screen.
You have to have to sit.
Okay.
He's the one in charge of that.
Test.
I know I'm old and I'm that hard of hearing myself.
I think I hope I did. I don't hear anyone can share. Both participants can share simultaneously.
Would you like me to stand up here? That sounds like I don't know if the mic, this mic works better. That would be great. That way we go that one. Can people hear me? Yeah, this mic. Okay, I'll just do a stand-up routine here. So great. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, commissioners, county staff. My name is Chris Hawes, Next Energy Resources. Company is out of Juno Beach, Florida. I live outside of Denver, Colorado. And the developer for the Los Animas Wind and Solar Project. We appreciate the opportunity to present here this morning and are looking forward to hearing everyone speak. We have a couple folks on our team I'd like to introduce first. Mr. Dion Watson, who introduced himself already. We have our local Denver council with Holland and Hart, Jordan Bunch and Andrew Emmerich. And then we have our consultant, Tricia Bernhardt with Tetra Tech out of Denver, who prepared the land use application that was under review. Also want to thank the individuals from the community that have elected to come out here this morning. Many of our participating landowners who have joined us on this journey and have elected to be part of the permitting process this morning. Going to have a quick presentation just on the history of NextEra, how this project evolved, and basically describing kind of some of the details of the project. I know there'll be more questions, but to give a high-level overview right now. Next slide, please. NextEra Energy Resources is a world leader in renewable generation and operation. We're an American-owned company. We're largest in the United States with almost 55,000 megawatts of operating generation of wind, solar, battery storage, nuclear energy, natural gas, and oil facilities. So we're a very diverse company. We've been in business for almost 100 years, expanding our roots from an electric utility in Florida to now having operations in 49 states and 4 Canadian provinces to provide clean, safe, and affordable energy to customers that use our energy that we produce. We have over 9,700 wind turbines that are in operation right now and tens of millions of solar panels that are operating across North America, and have a market capitalization of $115 billion with over 200 energy generation sites in the country. Through our hundreds of long-term power purchase agreements, we're providing consistent and reliable, diverse sources of energy to our customers and partners. Also proud to say that we're not a stranger to Colorado. NextEra has been in Colorado for over 15 years. We've partnered with 9 different counties. Several of those have welcomed us back to create second phases of wind energy projects. And we've also worked with several cities to develop those projects totaling over 2,200 megawatts of generation that's in operation today, and over 200 miles of transmission connecting those sites to the grid. These projects have represented a $3.5 billion investment in Colorado. We're happy to say that that power is providing over 10% of the power to the state of Colorado. These projects have helped landowners continue to strengthen their farming and ranching operations through the annual payments that we make, which those payments are independent of fluctuating commodity prices. We paid over $8 million to landowners each and every year. And as far as Colorado on a broader scale, these projects through that generating dollars in recent chat. Can someone hear me? $8 million, and then the annual property taxes of over $5 million that we've also paid to the local community through property taxes generated by the project infrastructure we install. We've also added more than 65 full-time jobs through these projects with an annual payroll of over $27 million. Just a point that as far as those 65 jobs, we do recruit with the Northeastern Junior College in Sterling, where we do have students that come out of that school and are able to get jobs locally or within the state working on our sites. Los Animas County has a unique blend of natural energy resources, and with new transmission projects on the horizon, the opportunity for wind and solar gives us an opportunity to utilize these resources and add a benefit to the local community. The wind resource here is why we decided to begin development on our first wind project in this county. So we have a 30-year, anticipated 30-year life of the project for the project in Los Animas County. And the 34 families that have signed up willingly to participate in this project will be receiving landowner payments of up to $80 million over the life of the project. We also estimate property tax payments to be up to $28.5 million over the life of the project, which will provide funds to the local schools and the county various departments that receive the mill levy with those property taxes. The creation of jobs during construction. The full-time jobs that will be created once the project is in operation will also provide benefits to the community through long-term, good-paying jobs, and the intent to bring families and members to the community to live in the community where this project will be. We do have, again, stress that wind energy has been compatible with ranching and farming. Like I said, we've done 10 wind projects throughout the state. Had great relations with the landowners that can continue to do their business of either ranching or farming their lands. The payments that are received by these individuals can also provide an alternative source of income for them, which can help hedge against fluctuating market commodities and prices in the agricultural industry. Additionally, the access roads that we construct, many times that have been installed and maintained, will be maintained by the project, will help these farmers and ranchers give them more access to parts of their property maybe that historically they haven't had access to. So it also helps make their job and business a little more easier to access some of their lands. And then just the fact that these landowners can take pride that they're helping provide clean, homegrown energy to the state of Colorado. Next slide, please. For all of our projects in Colorado, we've been an active partner in the community. As I mentioned, Northeastern Junior College, working with them to recruit students that have come up through these training programs to operate wind or solar facilities. We also have worked with Pueblo Community College. They also have a program that places students into this industry. So again, bringing renewable energy into these schools' curriculum and providing these educational and training opportunities to these students is the hope that they'll pursue jobs here in the state of Colorado and the communities where they've grown up. We provided support for local county fairs and rodeos and 4-H programs in Cheyenne County, Lincoln, Kit Carson, El Paso, pretty much wherever we have a site, and we certainly have already engaged some members in the community as far as interests and opportunities that they see, and then also look forward to partnering on and welcome discussions to support other programs that might be of interest to the county. Specifically, those talking with needs from the King School District, which is a local town where we're looking to develop this project, and also the King Fire Department to understand some of their needs and provide, again, some resources that can help them support their goals. For many of our projects in Colorado, our turbines, and most recently a solar project in Pueblo County that just went commissioned last month, we placed several turbines on Colorado State Trust land. The 10 wind farms that are operating in Colorado all have Colorado State Land Board as a participating landowner in those projects. And as a result of that, we provided these payments to the state in the amount of $6 million. The Thunderwolf project alone in Pueblo County is exclusively on state land, state trust land, and we will be paying them $46 million over the 35-year life of the project. The thing we like about that is, and talking to the state land board, that money does go back to the local school district. And we have a good example in Kit Carson County with the wind project that we just developed several years ago, where one of the schools got funding through the production payments that we make to the state land board. So glad to see that actually stays local. Next slide, please. So yeah, just a quick overview of the project. Western 2/3 in Los Animas County, the eastern third in Baca County. The solar part of this project is in Baca County, who approved, their Board of County Commissioners approved the solar and wind portion of this project in February. We're about 65 miles east of where we're standing now, approximately 5 miles northeast of the town of Kim. The yellow boundary there inside so the red is the wind project boundary, the yellow is the solar project boundary, and that is in Baca County. The blue lines are the proposed transmission routes that we are anticipating getting the power onto the grid through an interconnection point.
Mr. As you mentioned, this is going to be repeat the distance from the town of Kim.
The southern and westernmost turbines are about 5 to 6 miles northeast of Kim. So in total, the total project size is 1,000 megawatts of wind and up to 500 megawatts of solar. Within Los Angeles County specifically, we're anticipating up to 300 turbines, which consist of anywhere from 2.3 to 3.04 megawatt turbines. Really, it's just the size of the turbine generator. We'll be making that decision as we understand what size project will actually get approved by an off-taker. But right now, the plan is to put, it's more the number of turbines and the megawatts. That is our kind of cap as far as what we have in the application. A little more zoomed in. Again, this is just kind of showing a little closer view of the preliminary current footprint that we provided in the application. So getting a little more technical details of the study, I know there was a question on some of the regulatory bird surveys or work that's been done on that. Certainly get into more specific questions, but at a high level, we do pride ourselves in siting responsibly and taking into account local species and habitats. We conducted detailed environmental surveys and studies based on industry best practices and that are consistent with state and local requirements. We consult with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, a lot of consultation with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. And we've been doing these studies that are listed there all the way starting back in 2017 when this project was in its initial state of development. And as the project boundaries evolved over the years, we've continued those studies to be in the current footprint. Studies have included, as are mentioned there, avian use surveys, which are basically surveys looking for raptors, migratory birds, raptor nest surveys, bat surveys, habitat assessments for species of special concern as identified and through consultation with Parks and Wildlife, and then assessments for wetlands and waters of the U.S., which historically in this area isn't too big an issue. We're going to have a great wet year this year, but we do cite to minimize impacts to wetland and streams through our grow collection
So,
process.
Mr. Haas, according to this, or what you're saying here, the Colorado Department of Parks and Wildlife have their stamp of approval on this project?
Yeah, they typically won't issue like a letter in support. They issue letters with recommendations since they're more like a referral agency than a regulatory. And so yes, we've consulted with them on numerous occasions. We've taken in input on their.
Most of this, is it in here? I didn't see it.
What's that?
That recommendation.
No, it's not in that application package. So we've honored their they have setback distances for raptor nests, so in our studies, we'll buffer those nests based on the recommended setbacks. And then we also follow wind energy guidelines, which U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service publishes, again, recommendations, but we follow those as well.
Is that paperwork easily accessible?
We do provide that to Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and they can certainly be able to provide those studies. We can provide that to this board as well, absolutely.
And since I'm asking you a couple of questions about me, Chairman, in light of our recent hail and windstorms we've had out here in Los Animas County, what is the securities of the wind turbines and their, I guess, their level of resistance to that? And what's the procedure if they're damaged to wind and or hail and cleanup operation of that? And then we already know we have decommissioning clauses in that. How do you move forward in such an event of a tornado, wind, hail?
Yeah, so if there is damage that would, well, first of all, if there are high winds detected, these turbines do have monitors on them, so they will actually shut down where they're not spinning in high winds. If there is blade damage or after an event, we would go out and assess that to make sure it's the integrity of either the tower or the blades are intact. We have had instances where we need to swap out a blade, and basically it's a matter of shutting that turbine down and kind of doing the opposite of when they were erected, taking a blade or two, removing those, disposing of that. We have recycling centers that, again, not a lot of them right now. I'm sure over the life of this project there's going to be more of those as this technology evolves, specifically as turbines are being swapped out for either newer blades or longer blades, and then those are disposed of and replaced with a new blade. Or I think we rarely have damage to towers from hail.
If I may, Commissioners, so it's important to state that we have a full command center in Florida where we can see every wind turbine in our fleet, and it's monitored 24/7. We also will have on-site operations building where they can see it as well, and these turbines will lock out to where they're not spinning and respond in the event of a weather condition of some sort. And Chris is exactly right. At the end of that whatever event, we go out and we assess and we fix the turbine or refurbish it or whatever needs to be done. I think it's important to remember that if the turbine isn't working, we're not making money as well. So it's important to us, outside of your safety, to get these things back up and running and make sure these things are working properly.
And a follow-up question, if I may, please. Mr. House, Mr. Watson, this is not a county commissioner issue in perspective to your contract with your landowners, but just for the record, any of crops or livestock damaged during that such event, the landowner be properly reimbursed for that incident?
Yes, there is a complete compensation agreement with us and the landowners where we compensate them at any time that we go on their land and damage something, or if our equipment damages something, we come out and we definitely reimburse them.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for that question. I have another question for you. Explain this decommissioning process. I'm still in the dark how they're going to put in these blades, or how do you recycle them?
So in our decommissioning agreement, which are part of our lease agreements, we have a certain depth that we will remove concrete, underground electrical cables, and then we will reclaim and receive that. The materials are hauled off to a recycling center. We had a project in northern Colorado where we took those. I think countrywide, sometimes the response is landfill. And many landfills don't have the capacity to hold that. We are, as a kind of a leader in the industry, looking at ways to basically cut them and recycle them. They are being used as an additive to concrete. The fiberglass component, when it's basically shredded, can be added to provide structural or integrity in concrete. So again, we're still doing a lot of research as an industry and as a company, but those basically just hauled off the steel. As far as the turbine tower components is sold back. Typically, like the scrap cost for selling it outweighs the cost of the actual decommissioning process with the value you can get selling that material back.
But our obligation to the county and the landowners is to put the land back as close to shape that it was when we found it. So we're going to remove everything, like Chris said, up to a certain depth, including the overhead transmission lines. We're going to haul the blades off, the towers. Everything is going to go away, and we're also going to work with the landowners to reseed wherever there's land that needs to be replanted and whatnot into an acceptable state for them. So that's our commitment and obligation, and the reclamation bond also holds us to it.
And in the construction process, we understand there's going to be a lot of trucks up and down our county roads. Is there going to be dust mitigation provided?
Yeah, we have to provide dust control through our air quality permit. There is a state permit that you have to obtain. Part of that permit requires certain speeds and, again, dust mitigation we'll procure water off-site from commercial places. We've done that pretty much on every wind project, any wind solar project in Colorado. And then we have provided a draft road use agreement to County Road and Bridge. I've spoken with Phil on kind of some of the details of that, but we still have conversations to have as far as that road use agreement and kind of keeping us to commitments to, one, keep the roads in good condition during construction, keep the roads in a condition better than they were after construction, and every time in between, again, making sure that we're keeping the integrity of those roads up.
Bill, is there any bridges or anything that we should be considering? I'm sorry, I'm asking questions.
So the affirmative penalty of perjury and testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name and position.
No, no.
Phil's our county administrator and road and bridge supervisor, so are there any bridges that we should be concerned about when they're doing this construction?
They have not sent us the final proposed routes yet, or draft routes. There may be, but as for our discussion, it's incumbent upon the contractor, the builder then to let us know what bridges that may be crossing. And then we can check to see whether or not they're weight restricted.
And if they are weight restricted, do they go over that weight restriction? Is it up to the company to build that bridge accordingly?
If it's weight restricted, they won't be going over, rephrase it, they should not be going over the bridge with anything any weight that's above that restriction. They should find a different route, so that's why once they get their final routes to us, then we can check to make sure that their routes aren't being impacted by any weight restrictions.
Yeah, and add a little more to that as well. Yes, the preliminary haul route, certainly there are red flags in that. We want to hear about that and adjust accordingly. We also have our turbine, whatever company we choose that will deliver the turbines. They'll do like a kind of a dry run of the haul route and look for, even on state highways, low clearance bridges, weight restricted bridges. This includes state roads and county roads. And drive that bridge to make sure that they're not running this equipment over a bridge and you have failure. So we're still in the process of working through that, but yeah, the goal would not be to use a bridge that would be weight restricted. That would cause more problems and delays for our project.
I have a question, Chairman. Since we're kind of going off tangents here, on hauling, this is an agricultural county, and a lot of our farmers and ranchers utilize those county roads for their day-to-day livelihoods. Will you have a website or communications director to communicate with all of the property owners or ranchers, cattle haulers, and such, where they can see when these turbines will be hauled into the location, so that they are aware and or updated on a basis, weekly basis, monthly basis? What do you have details of your plan?
So, yes, so we will have, we usually have our land team that works directly with these landowners that have signed up and are communicating with them regularly on project schedules. We will have a full trailer. A project of this size will be a full operation of trailers of our contractors, all of our environmentalists, everybody, that they'll sit there and they'll be there every day, but they're one of our guys, probably like 2 or 3 of them, their whole job is to coordinate with the landowners and be that conduit between landowners and the construction team of where we're going to be accessing stuff at, if there's gates that we need to go through, make sure they're coordinating so landowners are very informed about when we're going to access their property and what kind of work is going to be done on the property.
You mentioned those that have signed up. What about those that aren't signed up? or not having turbines will still be affected by the use of the county roads. Is there a website or some sort of notification process for those residents in the community?
So that's something we could take and put together, if that could be a
I think
condition.
it's necessary. Just because you're not putting wind turbines on, say, my property, which I don't own any of, they're just for the record, or I may be able to utilize the county road to haul my cattle to the livestock sale. I sure would like to know, instead of having 10 turbines, semis clogging up the county road when I can't get a road.
Well, we definitely agree with you, and I think we can work with, whether that be Bob or whoever, that the county, that we can help put that communication together where we have regular weekly communication of what's going to be happening in the county as far from a construction standpoint. We've done that before.
Since I'm on environment, we recently had a fire. I'm sorry, I'd like to be thorough, Wes. We recently had a fire. You mentioned the Kim Fire District would be a recipient of some funding for this because of their taxing districts. I think that's how they want to see on the funding. Has there been some discussion with the Kim Fire Department on assistance of training? Is there any specific type of chemical or oils that are used in these turbines? I'm sure they use oil because they're not going to be lubricated with wind to operate. And how do they combat these fires and have training with your organization as well as them? And if it gets out of control, we bring in the state and the county like we do on any other fire. Caused directly by a wind turbine. What is your process in that terms?
So yeah, we did meet with Kim Fire District, kind of understand some of the challenges, limitations, staffing, response time, those sorts of things. With every project, including battery, it's very much battery, which I'm sure you probably heard in the last month's meeting. We do have an emergency response plan that we work and tailor with the local fire districts to go through kind of the chain of command, response, coordination, contacts. So we'll be working with them to, again, tailor that, and that goes with kind of Baca County as well, with Springfield and La Junta, which are kind of the backup, as I understand, to Kim, and go through that. But back to the battery and solar especially, but even for wind, we do have training that we'll provide prior to going COD, where we do bring in the local fire departments, kind of go through like where would a fire start, how would it spread, what's the process, who's responsible for what to contain it from going beyond getting bigger. So we do have those processes in place, and we'll be working to have that kind of joint training. In fact, we spoke with the fire district. We have like 2 or 3 options, since there are multiple fire departments in the district or in the area that we're proposing this project. But that is standard practice for us on every project.
One last issue, Chair, for myself on the environmental for fire protection and or other flood or wind or warning event. Have you reached out to our emergency manager, Joe Richards, and initiating a plan, emergency operation plan with your company at this point in time, or is that something we'll be looking for this?
That's definitely something we'll be looking for. We have not met with the county staff yet. It was just wanted to kind of understand the local situation with, again, Canton, Monmouth, and Springfield, but we can certainly commit to engaging them as well on a county level.
I'm going to keep going.
I only have 1 slide left, so this is a good time.
So, the county's aware we have several conservation easements in the area out there, and how do you deal with the conservation easement requirement?
On private property easements, so that's something that we go through with the landowners when we're looking at the deeds, looking at our lease agreements. We're looking at whether there's easements or whether the land's enrolled in either conservation reserve program or now it's a conservation stewardship program. The way we work through those on the CSP with Farm Service Agency is we're required to actually take out those easements, and that's not a landowner cost. We basically pay the landowner for the cost to take whatever easement, construction easement, whether it's road, underground collection, turbine footprint, out of that contract, so that we then have access and can only stay within that easement.
And no cost to the producer or branch or?
No, we pay those costs. Yeah.
I had another question, so go ahead.
I was just, oh gosh, it's too loud. I was going to say along those lines, a big part of our process when we lay all these projects out, what you guys saw is just a high level where the turbine's going to go, but when we actually get all the way into details for the roads, collection, that goes between a conversation between us and the landowners, and we give them what we call an Exhibit B that shows out all these, where these things are going to go, and get their input. So there's a certain place they want us to stay away from, they want us to move around, we do that because nobody knows the land like they do. And we want to work with them to put it in the best place, or maybe they want a road on the east side instead of the west side. That's a very common, and that's when all these things start to come out about the different places where they have these conservation easements. But so there is input on where we put these things at as far as the underground road, the roads, underground collection and whatnot from the landowner, so that we can try to avoid it. There is some situations where it may be unavoidable, and at that point, it's really up to the landowner to say, do they want to, trade off the conservation that they're getting for the benefits from the wind project.
One more question. I know our chair has multiples. Have you been in contact with the military? I don't know if you know, but Los Angeles County has pushed back really hard on the proposed expansion that was going to come forward. And it looks like to me that they're starting their low flight zones, and so has there been any pushback from them?
So I'll answer. So we are in beginning stages of talking with the military about this. This is something we do have to work with them to come out with a plan of how it's going to work. And again, we've just filed these things recently, so it's all public knowledge. So I can say that if you go to the FAA website, you'll see where we actually filed these turbines at locations. But that was so we can start these conversations for that exact reason. We have consultants that have identified the low flying areas that may be of risk or a concern to them, and it's going to be great times talking to the military.
It would actually probably halt any expansion in that direction if we were to get this right.
Yeah.
They're always tapping it. It's happening. I think mine's but military tapping in. So yeah, good. Yeah, and ultimately they have the right to say this is a presumed hazard for us. They could give a letter of rejection, would be a huge problem for us, and ultimately they could stop the project.
Thank you. Let me first of all apologize for the technical challenges that we're having. But I do, let me begin by, you mentioned, Mr. Haas, the batteries that both are going to be stored on site.
No, there's no battery storage proposed for this project. I was just explaining that, as part of the training with emergency response teams, we're getting a lot more of that need for battery projects. But it's, again, process for us, regardless if it's battery, solar, wind, to have those trainings, but no battery that we're proposing.
I read so many reports on what could be the manufacturing components of the blades. Some articles that I haven't read, they said they have cadmium, they have so many hazardous materials built in. And can you, for the record, tell us what is the manufacturer, and is the public going to be able to see exactly what's on those blades? Because throughout the nation, I just drove through portions of Texas, and I saw so many broken blades just dangling in there, basically. And if they're actually contaminating the ground, what is going to be the responsibility of you as the contractor? So can you tell us what are the components? And I would like to see the MSD sheets that are actually telling us, not only for the fire departments, but for the responders and for the landowners.
Yeah, so we can definitely, we haven't chosen this manufacturer yet, but in any given case, we can provide those MSD sheets for sure. In regards to blades laying on the ground, again, I want to speak for NextEra, that's not what we do. And it's an actual violation of our land lease agreement, in which the landowners can kick us off their land for our standpoint. So we do not, that's not our practice. We do not leave turbines on the ground. in any form or fashion. I may work with the county whenever we're doing some changing out of turbines that it may be down there a couple of days or so as we're trying to haul stuff in and get it out. But it's not our practice to have them laid down on the ground, but completely open to providing MSD sheets to landowners, you guys, and whatnot, because we definitely want you to know what's going on your property in your county.
Thank you. One of the questions also, as you drive up and down where these turbines are located, the oil that permeates, or the leakage of oil that is probably located up on top of the turbine, it's in some of the instances, I don't know how high the stem is, probably 70, 80 feet, 100?
80 meters.
80 meters, okay, so that's way up there. So nonetheless, there is a lot of oil coming down of those. What are going to be the steps on your part to remediate that and for preventing that from happening? Because when a rainstorm comes, that's going to wash into the ground. And of course, since this is going to be clean, safe, and affordable energy production, which is actually made with steel, use fossil fuels. I just want to be certain that our landowners and our community is going to be safe from these could be hazardous waste coming into the ground.
Yeah, so again, speaking specifically next year, I have seen what you've seen in other farms, and it's been something that we have addressed. And when something like that happens, where we go up and we actually clean it, or we work with the manufacturers in this to try to come up with what are the problems and why it's leaking. So we're aware of it's a problem, and I think it's something that we can talk more about, like if it's maybe a condition that, hey, these things start rolling, that we have to go put them up. Normally, we will do it, but if it makes you guys feel more comfortable that that's a requirement, we're open to that.
And I want to morph into a question that was asked by both fellow commissioners. In the event of a hot windstorm, that there is a blade that is destroyed and it's broken and pretty soon it's shattered, how soon is the response from your team going to be from a phone call from the landowner, because they're going to be calling also probably neighbors are going to be calling the county, hey, there is a blade that is just being blown in there. What is the response team that you have, hours, days, to get this corrected?
So in the event of cleanup and actually sectioning off and making sure that everything is safe, that's in a day or so that we're immediately responding to that. That is like the top priority. As you heard, we have 200 of these, but those are priority situations where we would immediately get someone out there immediately. As far as now restoring it may take some time as far as getting the blade back up, but our first primary response is the safety and getting those things, make sure no harm is done and assessing. And again, we'll have folks on the ground who will be here, live here, and work out in an office here of 20 people that work in that office that will be responding immediately to that when it's safe outside for them to be able to go out as well.
Let me. We're going to finish your slides. I have one more question in here. In Marshall County, Kansas, according to some of the reports, I did Google your company. I went on some of the projects that you have installed. I just don't want this happening here in San Luis County. There was an installation in there by Next Era where one of these incidents happened. And after repeated phone calls from the landowners, from the neighbors, no one responded, and this particular twin tower just lay there for weeks on end, where some of the neighbors even picked up portions of the fiberglass in their property, and they claim to be, this could be conspiratorial. But again, I'm asking the question because it's out there, and I just want clarification for our residents here, that even a mile away, they found residue of this particular blade laying in their property. So that's the reasoning for my question in all this. And certainly, since we are charged with health and safety, it is paramount that we address this whole thing and create transparency, because at the end of the day, it is our residents and constituents that are going to be dealing with this.
So I'm personally unaware of the Kansas, all the details around it. I don't doubt that we have had turbines where they have been down, but all the other details I'm not aware of. Again, that isn't our practice. I would be shocked if that was the truth that happened. As far as us leaving it down there for weeks, that just doesn't sound like Next Era, right? I wouldn't work for a place that would do that, honestly. But yeah, I mean, it could, like I said, it could take some time to get it up. Now, it probably was sectioned off. I'm actually not going to think about trying to think what happened. Let me just say that's not our practice. And if it makes you guys more comfortable that we add more something in approval around these things, then we can open to that.
Thank you, and I'll be glad to. Constituents are sending us information, and certainly this is because we got that information available to us. I'll be more than glad to share these articles with you. Go ahead and proceed, Mr. Hass.
Yeah, just the last slide, just kind of sums up the, actually I got a couple more. So we have touched mostly on these reclamation and decommissioning. So again, we do reclamation concurrent with construction. We do work with the local NRCS to identify best seed mixes that they recommend. Also landowner can determine what he or she wants to have reclaimed in those disturbed areas. And as Bob alluded to earlier, there was a requirement to provide a noxious weed management plan, which we have submitted to the county. I think that probably will be evolving. We provided that report to him, but as we get out there, understand, what's the extent of noxious weeds, what's out there prior to construction, and how do we treat those, we'll still be working as part of that plan. That's the living document to treat those noxious weeds before or during construction. Decommissioning. Next, yep, please. So again, we talked about decommissioning. As part of our lease agreements, we do have that we're contractually obligated, like I said, to remove those improvements as we discussed. And then which came out of the Planning Commission meeting, was discussed this morning. We understand that a bond will be put in place. As far as the amount, like we said, we're permitting a maximum megawatts, maximum number of turbines, depending on how this project gets awarded. It may be that or some number under that. But once we have that, that will influence what our decommissioning costs will be, and we'll be posting that basically at the time of prior to construction. And then it is every 5 years we'll be revisiting that cost and adjusting accordingly. And then the last slide is just kind of a project schedule, I believe. So again, discussed at the beginning, the mineral rights notifications were sent out. We did send those out prior to the Planning Commission hearing, and also sent out a second notice prior to this hearing today. We have permitting that we're going through now. Like I said, Docket County did approve their portion of the project in February, and we will be continuing to permit the transmission part of this in the other counties that we're looking to connect this project in with the city in the system. We started our kind of engineering or procurement team is looking at bids and materials for having materials ready, so that when we do get awarded this, we have those materials in place to start construction. Anticipate breaking ground as early as spring 2024, and then we have deliveries coming in within the next year for turbines, and then again, at the moment, planning on a end of 25 COD, which is basically the project's up and running generator project to the grid. And then we do wrap up reclamation. Like I said, it is concurrent with construction, but once we admit that reclamation out here is going to be a challenge. Like I said, we've done 14 projects in Colorado, and definitely have learned what works, how to get reclamation success. But we do provide some additional time after construction is complete to, again, get final reclamation. That's all I have.
I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
Maybe a couple. Thank you, Chairman. I don't know how to really phrase this, gentlemen. As our federal government decides to incentivize technology on, it seems like, an annual basis, my concern is a financial concern. It's always about dollars. As a county commissioner, and the revenue coming into a community such as Kim Fire Districts, Los Angeles County, and the ranchers and farmers, even though that's a private property issue, that you have contracts with those individuals. My concern is this, or my question would be, as our federal government and our technology changes in the next 10, 20, 15, 30 years, some of us won't be here. And this technology revolves into possibly nuclear or thermal power. How will your company continue to phase into the new industries, if possible, if you decide to do so that those funding mechanisms that you're promising today will still be there for the length of this solar farm, so maybe it's cut short. I guess that was my question. I know there's no guarantee, so I'm known for asking dumb questions, but it is very important that these communities know that this funding mechanism could drop off, or are you prepared to the next phase of some technology?
So, I'll take it first. So, these projects, the way we model them out is our business plan is for 30 years useful life. And those incentives, these wind turbines normally get the production tax credit. That's the tax credit that it gets from the federal government. So we already model that after 10 years, this project's not going to get that anymore. But based off of the contract price we strike with the customer, we're very, very confident that we can operate for 30 years. But another part of that is at the end of 10 years, what we normally do, we have done in the past, and we will continue to, we have a huge program devoted to it, is come out and repower these projects. Now, what that means is we give them a facelift. We take down a certain percentage of it and put that back up. We would have to come back to you guys at that point, but that would extend the life cycle of these turbines. I mean, we've repowered almost 95% of our projects. The ones we haven't is for whether it's a commercial reason with the counterpart, they haven't agreed to it or whatnot. But there's just so much value in those federal incentives to, even after that 10-year mark when it falls off, to reinvest back into that area in that county and to start that, getting those tax incentives. And the technology is improving. It's improving every day, and better technology 10 years from now, and we can utilize, the same relationships we have with Animas County, the landowners, these turbine locations, and refurbish it into the big wing that we see both.
What is the life expectancy of the wind turbine?
30 years.
I'll be 50 by then. Couple of questions. Can you tell me, water is a big issue here in this part of Colorado. You're going to be using a lot of water to do those construction plans. Have you contracted the necessary water to do all your construction, also to include dust mitigation?
So we have not. Our process is that NextEra itself doesn't build the project. We contract our EPC, our construction company that we use, and they usually source it. But we give them input to try to source as much as we can locally first. And we know that water is going to be a thing, so they're going to go outside. So we have not to have sourced the water or signed up any contracts, but they are subject to whatever permits or whatever requirements you guys put on us, so they will have to follow the dust mitigation requirements.
You spoke about the battery that is going to be, that's not going to be an issue. Talk to us about the trenching from one turbine to the other. There's going to be connectivity, and all that connectivity is going to lead to someplace. As far as that, and as the farming and ranching community goes through the process, I would imagine there's going to be training and mapping for someone excavating, even putting a fence line throughout those property lines. Go ahead.
So yeah, I believe it was mentioned earlier, we provide like exhibits to the landowners that show where everything is. And it is buried to a depth about 4 feet below ground surface where those cables are. And so the landowner does have an awareness as to where those features are. Does that answer your question, or is it more?
Yes, no, that's good.
Are they marked? Will they be marked?
The underground collection, do not believe we typically mark those. However, we would be, spoke with Bill about this, if we have collection going under a county road, that we would need a permit for that to show where that crossing is, whether it be bored underneath or just an open cut, fill, and fill back in. So we'll also have that record with the county as far as where those cables are crossing county roads.
And I want to guess, Commissioners, if I can interject, if we in the Road and Bridge Department needs to do any kind of work in the vicinity of one of those lines, in 1-1, and then they're required to come out and locate those utilities.
Thank you. That was a good question. The project says that you would be working with the local fire districts, probably La Junta and Springfield. And then, of course, in your document, it says that fires are very seldom. But have you had any fires? And what is the first step of training and the commitment? And is there going to be require additional fire suppression chemicals, if you will, for the firefighters to put these fires out? And then is there going to be any hazards to those respondents because of the burning of these chemicals?
Yeah, we certainly do not expect putting first responders on climbing turbine to put a fire out. If anything, it's going to start up high in the actual turbine generator. So the plan is basically just to contain the fire around the perimeter, very much like a solar facility as well, where we contain, rather than having them go into an active fire and energized system. But we do have, I mentioned earlier, we do have the technology and the systems in place to detect if there is an event in that turbine, that we can basically have that stop and get, we're alerted to our local O&M team, and then as part of the emergency response plan, we have that kind of which fire district we would reach out to. Again, if it's in way on the eastern part of the project, it might be Springfield. If it's the western part of the project, we can have that process in, and we do not, like I said, do not expect them to go climb the turbine to put it out. It's basically allowed to burn in that turbine, and we establish the perimeter to prevent spread. As far as chemical treatments, I would say up to the fire department on how to contain, but we expect if there's, in the unlikely event or event that there was a fire, it becomes a wildfire. However, whether they're doing trenches to contain or putting other sort of fire retardant, depending on the size. Again, I can't really elaborate on how that would happen, but we do through the training process again get the it's really containing it to a small footprint as we can, if it were to go onto the ground.
In our land use regulations, we speak about the nuisance factor, anything that could be, through all the technology that has been developed worldwide, is there a different, as the tower is being installed, the lighting that automatically goes on if it detects an aircraft coming by? I have driven up and down I-25, and if you look east, just north of here, about 40 miles north of Trinidad on I-25 in the evening at night. I mean, there is just that continued lighting of that becomes, if I were to live even 5 miles from there, that to me could become a nuisance. And having to see that, I'm going to have to buy special window coverings and so on. Is there any lighting that is neutral to the human eye?
So, to back up a little bit, historically in Colorado, yes, per FAA guidelines, the lights are required. We still are required to put those lights on the top of each turbine. However, within the last 2 years, there's been a rule passed where we actually have to now install radar detection to detect aircraft where the lights are actually off. But you essentially put like a bubble around the project, certain altitude, certain distance, and when that bubble is essentially broken by aircraft and that radar detects an aircraft within that perimeter, they will turn the lights on for a certain amount of time until that aircraft is left that basically that bubble. So the lights will not be on continuously; they're only programmed to turn on. However, they are, as far as your question about the type of lighting, we are required by FAA to have specific, color, specific type of flashing in accordance with the FAA guidelines.
And that's a requirement that came with state law that was passed for the whole wind energy. So we all have to abide by that going forward to put these special lights in that don't just blink; they only blink when the aircraft is in the city of the project.
Thank you, sir. There is in your document, it says, and for me to elaborate, it says A, weight and C, weight noise levels of the residents nearest to the project boundary and the property line of such residents nearest to the project boundary will be measured. And I, let me see if you need I guess what I'm asking is, how do you measure the noise level that is going to be created by these wind turbines? And then, of course, I think what your document here throughout the entire chapter says that it's going to be measured as how it's going to be impact the nearest residents to one of these wind turbines. Can you extrapolate on that? What exactly does that mean? And what's an acceptable noise level from both EPA, environmental, and then, of course, state standards?
Well, state or county will follow whatever noise regulations there are, but I have to recall exactly where the application that is, but again, what we've done in other projects, if there is a complaint on noise impacts, that we can do these technical studies that go out and measure the noise at the property line or at the receptor. It's beyond my kind of, basically our consultants that go out and measure that, just as you would measure traffic noise or other noises from point sources.
So if I can add to that, since you've been in this industry for quite a while, what is the decibel level that the wind tower puts off?
At a certain distance, or just
yeah, do you have a chart, say at 100 feet, at 1,000 feet, at a half a mile?
We do have yes, we do have that. I believe at, gosh, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I mean, average decibel is around 30, 35 when operating. Typically, again, our landowners that have turbines on the site say the wind's louder when it's blowing out there. And then, based on our siting rules, specifically for Los Angeles County, we have 1.5 times the total turbine height at maximum depth. That we find that sighting distance really alleviates anything over, like typically counties or states have like at a property line maybe 50 to 60 decibels at that limit. That sighting distance alleviates that noise issue. Now, again, if you're downwind, then it that certainly vary depending on the strength of the wind. But as an average, that's what we found.
So, for the last follow-up question on that, decibel levels as a position, I understand, affecting this day-to-day operation, day-to-day life, and it could be a nuisance as well. What is the closest residence to your wind turbine? Do you have a distance that you know what's the closest one going to be?
We do not site our turbines any closer than over 1,450 feet. So there will be no turbines within that distance.
You said that there have been over 80 studies. On your document, it says, in addition, based on the findings and scientific merit of over 80 available peer-reviewed scientific studies, the weight of evidence suggests when cited properly, the presence of wind turbines are not correlated with any adverse health. Where can we find these 80 studies?
We can provide this.
Yeah, we can provide those. Typically, we're provided them from our sound consultants that delve in that's their business, much as it would be an environmental company citing migration survey, like technical journals, documents, those sorts of things. But we're certainly able to provide those references.
Again, just for the record, is the entirety of the turbine, when it's decommissioned, 100% recyclable, or is it going to be buried or stuck up someplace out of state or even within our own state?
The steel is sold for scrap. Fiberglass and the turbine components, or the fiberglass is shredded. There may be some materials that we would need to take to a landfill. Our operation and maintenance sites do have a record, well, they will have a record of the local landfills that take certain types of chemical deposits. Sometimes they may be Denver maybe the closest landfill. But anything that would not be recycled, we would be required by state law to dispose of that at a true landfill facility. But by and large, most of the turbines components would be either recycled in the blades or scrapped or salvaged for the steam.
Just for the record, the city of Trinidad's landfill is probably its last leg of use in the next 10, 15 years, so I don't think that would be a possibility for any salvage of your just so you know.
So for now, let me close with this question. Mineral rights. A lot of landowners, and then we have letters that were submitted. Mineral rights that are held by private landowners, and the notification to the same. Will you continue to work with them in the event that they have not been communicated with?
Certainly, we're willing to hear any concerns they have. We did receive at least, I believe, about 4 inquiries. We received several for the Planning Commission, and then we also received several for the Board of County Commissioners. I spoke with each of those individuals that had voiced concerns. Some of the questions were related to being paid for those, for us basically doing the service development, which we do not do, and others were just general questions as far as like how that process works. As Bob alluded to, we did notice all the mineral owners or leasees that had the record of the county assessor, understand that there could be multiple entities on those, listed for that. But to date, we've had conversations with all those owners, and yeah, if there is concern about citing or inhibiting their rights, as Bob alluded to earlier, we typically have 2 or 3, maybe 4 sometimes, but typically 2 and 3 turbines per section. As an average, when you look at the turbine pad footprint and the access road leading to that, they're typically about 1 to 1.5 acres. So again, historically in the state, we've had more than enough opportunity to afford mineral rights the ability to continue to use whatever areas they want for exploration and such. But in the event that we would, that there could be some conflict. Again, we typically, we have, I think the state statute, there's been reasonable access to their wells. And again, a lot more challenging in solar facilities where you could have sections, quarter sections, half sections, and solar panels, but when we haven't had that issue yet.
Excuse me, before you move on, I just want to clarify that we have spoken to the mineral right earners who we've sent notification to, and they responded back to us that have voiced concerns. And there are some who, based off of their names, maybe not being in the county assessment records, that we have not reached to, we will be open to talking to them about the same exact issue. We want to clarify that. And have not communicated with, at our part, we would like to talk to them.
From the notification of the mineral owners, that's when I was getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of letters. But it's a requirement that they notify the mineral owners, but the project is not a mineral, it's a service. I think that's where the confusion was coming from. But usually when I got something, I forwarded off to Trish, and she forwarded to the right person. And once they talk with them, I think most of them will understand.
Thank you.
One other question I have pertains to landowners and those that aren't in contract with your organization and impeding on their private property. Will you be needing to access any private landowner's property to place your wind turbines without having permission from those landowners?
No, we will not access anybody's property that we do not have agreements with. Now, there will be issues, so we need have turning radiuses where our equipment will swing across someone's property. We will sign an agreement with them and give them compensation for that, or we'll find another spot if they're a non-participating landowner. But we will not access anyone's property that is not signed up with us.
And I believe that was maybe one of the questions from the comments we got, because we have a big project boundary, but there are non-participating landowners within that big project boundary. We had to notice just simply because it's either a state and or county requirement for the mineral owners, but it was expressed that if we do not have a signed contract with them, we are not stepping foot on their properties.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Any other questions? Mr. Watson, Mr. Haas, thank you so much for now. Please remain and know that you are still under oath should we have any additional questions. And at this point in time, I want to ask anyone that wishes to speak on support of the project, please come forward and be sworn in as well.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
You
Good morning.
represent the truth, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes,
And please state your name.
Andrew Emmerich. I'm with Holland and Hart, outside legal counsel for NextEra Energy. I just wanted to sort of maybe clarify one of the questions that Commissioner Lopez asked earlier about the notification process and whether that comes from state statute or county regulations. There is a state statute that requires notification to mineral owners for any proposed surface use project. That statute, in the site, I give you a citation, it's Colorado Revised Statute 24-65.5-103. Now, that notification procedure only applies to the first county meeting, and because Las Animas County has a planning commission, technically that applied to 30 days before the planning commission. So in this case, NextEra did provide more than 30 days notification to all the mineral rights owners that they got from the county assessor's office before the planning commission. So that notification went out before the planning commission, and that is a requirement under state statute. After they send out all those letters by certified mail, they also have to do a confirmation that those were sent out. And Mr. Watson submitted that then to the planning staff. They had in fact sent that out. So that is a creature of Colorado statute. Now, for this commission, the only requirement is a requirement under your own land use planning regs. And there is a requirement, as you all know, to notify the mineral owners yet again within 14 days of this meeting. So just to kind of clarify that there was a state statute that applied to the earlier stage, and then there's a county regulation that applied to this, and NextEra complied with both of those. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would be remiss, one of that, I want to ask, before we get anybody else here from on support of the project, can you go back for a second and extrapolate just a little bit, either one of the two of you, Mr. Watson or Mr. Haas, on the 10-year subsidy that you spoke about? You mentioned that, as Commissioner Cruz Lopez asked the question, what happens thereafter? And of course, there's the commitment to maintain the project for 30 years. That is the agreement that you're signing up with the landowners. And for those 10 years, what is the impact versus the following 20? Financially to both landowner and county property, and we have our assessor here that's going to be joining us in just a second, but if you can extrapolate on that, I really would appreciate that.
I want to make sure you said the benefit, you said the benefit or the financial impact? I think the financial impact is
The incentive.
The incentives, yes. What are those federal incentives for the first 10 years? What kind of benefit would they be creating for both landowner, additional, or equal to the last 20 years of the project?
So those federal incentives are for the 10 years, and therefore the owner and operator of, which would be us in this sense. So there isn't an incremental benefit, I think, financially, where it's shared with the landowner or the county. It's just a part of how we view the asset of this project through the 30-year model. So to answer your question directly, there isn't an incremental benefit in the sense of that there's going to be a paid, like we give those tax incentives when we pass them on to you guys. No, it's what the contract says in regards to what we have with the landowners, what we pay them, and then also what are our tax requirements as far as with the county. But I just wanted to give you an understanding of how those incentives incentivize us to keep doing business in your county.
So, I'd like to follow up with that. Traditionally, if I was a businessman in their position, after my incentives are gone, I sell the project to another company. Is that the status or quo for your in this industry? I've been doing this 7 years, and we've gone through a lot of supplemental use permits, but never a win such a large capacity with these types of federal incentives. What is the traditional process after your incentives are completed at the federal level?
So our traditional process is to repower these projects, to continue to use and leverage the local relationships that we have in the project. That's first and foremost. Second, we also, the part that's not been, I guess, been shared is our customer contract is much longer than 10 years. So we also have an obligation to whatever customer that we sign that's normally anywhere from 20 to 30 years, where we have obligations that we're legally tied, and commercially have exposure on that too as well. So our business is not at the end of 10 years to flip it. Our business is at the end of 10 years, how do we start that clock over so we can continue to extract more value out of these properties?
Thank you.
So for my non-electrical engineering mind, can you translate the energy produced within this project? How many residences will be able to be powered? You know, your average household?
Yeah, I think 100 megawatts can give about, I think, 5,000 homes. So you go to 1,000, it's like 50,000 homes. 4 million. Gosh, I'm way off. 4 million.
Let's do some.
1,000 megawatts is 4 million homes. This is a really large site. And I think that you guys are asking all the right questions, and you're right to have these questions about this. But this is a large site. I think the biggest one we have, which I was a part of, is 1,027 megawatts that was just commissioned in Texas and Oklahoma. So this is not a standard, but we're the right folks to be able to get this done.
And for our, I know you're going to be employing between 300 and 500 individuals throughout the project. And then you mentioned 14 to 16 full-time positions. And hopefully those are going to be local employees from the populace that we have, as our county is, the unemployment rate is way up there. And not putting you on the spot, but what is going to be the going wage for those employees?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I can't say off the top of my head what that number is, but it'll be definitely an attractive one. Let me say that. Definitely.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Watson or Mr. Hatch?
Not at this time.
Okay, let me go ahead and ask anybody else that wishes to give comments for the proposition. Commissioner Butler, please come to the podium so we can swear you in. And great to see you, sir, from the great county of our eastern neighbor.
Solemnly affirm and approve the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And please state your name for the record.
My name's Rick Butler, and yes, good afternoon, fellow commissioners. I am a Becker County Commissioner. However, today I am here strictly as a landowner in Los Animas County and ag producer, and not representing Becker County in any way today. But I just want to make a couple comments here real quick. I know I'm under time constraint here, and I just know, to me, this is a private property, right? And whether I want a black cow, a red cow, you know, a thoroughbred or a quarter horse on my land, or plant a turbine on my land, that's my right. And when I first heard some of the talk coming in about renewable energies coming in this area, also another hat I wear, a 30-year electrical contractor in about 5 counties, servicing 5 counties. And I love the energy department. And I do know as a contractor, look at the housing 25 years ago. You can get away with 100 amp service. Nowadays, it's 200 amp minimum. Everybody has air conditioners. We didn't have that 25 years ago. Look at the commercial buildings. Commercials, twice that. Every commercial building nowadays has air conditioners. Our electrical grid is it's at its breaking point. Look at the blackouts in this country we have. So the feds are trying to come up with ways to help out, to supplement our energy department. This is one phase of that, I believe. Another thing, you know, I went and talked to a lot of the counties that have turbines on them. Pryor's County, the closest one to us. Ron Cook, Wendy Buxton Andrade, Tom Grasmick, fellow commissioners there, as you guys know. They're not willing to surrender their wind farm yet. It's been there since 2004. The services they have told me that has benefited from that wind farm, I can't even begin to list them all. They've actually expanded it 3 times. The original project plus twice they've expanded it. So the 20 or 30 year, to me, they're going to keep expanding it and growth. And I feel that Next Era is the same type of a company, or whoever these renewable energy companies are. They put a spotlight on us in this area, and I feel thankful that they are, because like I said, being an electrical contractor, I know how important power being produced in this country is. To me, you can even take it as far as when it's the energy that we develop in this country, we can get more of our military people out of other countries if we're producing energy, and whether it's drilling, anything, solar, wind turbines, anything. I just feel that we would benefit more producing our own as a country. And like I said, I just talked with Prowers County. They've always been just north of us, the turbines in Baca County, and it's just totally benefited tons of services. I'm not going to go into schools, and other people want to bring up how much it helps schools, which our small towns are getting smaller, our schools are getting smaller. We need industry in this region. You guys included, you're a lot bigger than we are in Baca County, but we need industry to keep our kids that are graduating from our local schools, colleges, etc., to stay in our region. And just so you know, they are high-paying jobs in Prowers County at the wind farm in Prowers County. There's about 3 or 4 kids, I believe, from Baca County that go to work. So that's my comments. Like I said, I'm totally here representing as an ag producer, not as a commissioner. So other than that, that's all I have. And I'll yield my time back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir, and great to see you.
Yep, you guys are fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Anybody else in support of this particular project? Come up, sir.
Solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I will.
And please state your name.
Dale Yocum.
Thank you.
I'm in support of this wind farm, and I'm just gonna echo what Rick told you a little bit, but, you know, that you guys have been to Keon, Bridget. The population's been declining since the 30s. We can't hardly keep a school. It's not the money so much, but it's the warm bodies we need out there. And the money will be beneficial as well. But to me, the biggest issue is private property rights. It offends me that anyone can tell me what I can or can't do with my property. That's what I feel. I hope you guys will consider all that, approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yocum. Anybody else in support of this project, either online or in the audience? One important question I forgot to ask Mr. Rick Butler: what color are your cows?
Black.
Yes, sir. Let me do another call. He's a good friend of mine. We've known each other for 20 years, so bear with us. Anybody else in support? Please come on up.
Solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
And please state your name for the record.
Monica Giffey, Superintendent for Kim School District. I'm going to be on the neutral side. I don't feel like it's my position to really go in either direction. I guess my only input is that I noticed on the slide that there's going to be $28.5 million tax property dollars come in from this project over the life of the project. And for me as the superintendent, what a blessing that is for my school district. I think 75% of the land I think is in Kim that is being affected by this county project. So my hope and my advice would be that those dollars come back to our community, because those are the landowners that support us as a school, and that's where that money is generated from, is from their land. I have sat down with NextEra have had great conversation of their support and their desire to give back to the community. And hiring locals is really tough in the Kim area because we don't have the housing. But that's our goal, is to work with them and to build the housing so that we can not only employ our locals, but increase our student population at our school, which then in turn requires more income for the school. So with that said, commissioners, I just want to say that I think that for us as a school, this would be a long-term benefit as we grow with the project, and hopefully our community can grow from that as well.
Thank you so much. I would like to hear more. That's intriguing. So you're going to work with them on the housing issue?
We've discussed several options, housing being one of them, security being another. One thing that came up was where do the construction workers stay? So we're looking internally into options on how we could maybe have some sort of opportunity to have construction workers stay if they're not in the kind of operation side. Once the project goes to operation, is an opportunity to have that support teachers that I understand Kim does provide housing for. So yeah, we've been discussing that. Again, a lot internally we need to communicate, but it's certainly on the table as far as how we can provide housing, since we know that is a commodity out there and an attractive too for retaining teachers.
Thank you. One thing, we did sit down and talk about a lot of different projects, and I appreciate them listening and being open to what the need is in our community. And I was really appreciative of them inviting us to their recruiting fairs, as they do recruiting fairs for employment, because we have a wonderful school in Kim, and a person can figure out how to find their own housing if we can attract them to our little rural school that provides a great education. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent.
Solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please state your name for the record.
Ernest Buckley. I kind of say I'm in support of this, and like Rick and Dale talked about, but there's one other thing too that is not maybe relevant right here, but out there, is the county roads. We don't have no service out there. Our cattle are full of dirt because there's not enough people to take care of them. And these guys pretty well have to, because they can't get the equipment across without it. We've got cattle roads, I got ropes stretched across the cattle guards because the cattle guards full of dirt. And the more access roads they make, when the fire breaks out, whether it's from them or just a lightning strike on my pasture, the better access the fire department will have. Thank you for your time.
Tell that gentleman right there where those roads are.
I can't remember the name, there was a guy from Kim out there last spring that put some trees that were overlaying on the road. And I said, is there any chance we can get these cattle guards cleaned out and big enough that my cows aren't jumping? He said, unfortunately, he said, there used to be this many people at Kim, and now there's this many, and we just don't have enough many people to make the roads. But I can show them to you real quick. Thank you for your time.
I'll get those numbers from you. You're in my district.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley.
Any other comments in support?
Solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
And can you please state your name?
Max Yoakum.
Thank you, sir.
I am probably the oldest one in this room, and I grew up in Kim, Colorado, when there was no roads, there was no nothing but wind chargers. We called them when they charged into a battery, give us juice. Well, as time has went on, things has gotten better. Roads has gotten better. Everything. My comment is progress is what we need, and this looks like one way of doing it. I'm for it.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Yoder.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience or online that wishes to provide comment on behalf of the proponents of this project? Before we call anyone on the opposition, I would like to see if Los Animas County Assessor Jody Amaro is she online?
Yes, Commissioner, I am online.
Well, good morning. Still morning. We're still doing pretty good. Ms. Amaro, a couple of questions, so let's go ahead and get you sworn in.
Solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do. My name is Jody Amaro, and I am the Los Animas County Assessor.
And thank you so much for being available. I know you're on the road this morning. Can you, what is the forecast for this ag land when it comes to valuation, which is one of the things that we're dealing with in this particular year, with rising assessment values on throughout pretty much the county? Do you have any forecast of what's going to happen to the taxes on these properties going forward with this, if this project were to be approved?
I do, Commissioner. As far as the ad valorem tax value for the land where the wind towers are going to sit, that value, they will remain an ag value. So your land, where the wind farm is going to sit, will remain at an ag value. It will not adjust to commercial. It will stay at an ag value because you can still do an ag process all the way up to the base of those turbines. As far as the taxes going back into our community, the town of Kim, the Kim School District, will receive quite a bit of this tax revenue coming back. Solar farms are considered a state-assessed property. So in July, my office will receive essentially the business name, where to send the tax bill, and a value, and what taxing districts it falls into. We will not be allowed to assess it until it is in use. So I think I have heard that this project will be completed by the end of 2025. So if they start putting wind towers in January 1 of 2024, we will be able to assess them, and you will actually see revenue coming back to those districts, or any of the districts that apply a mill levy in that area, possibly January 1 of 2025. And I've done just a little bit of research and been comparing the size of this wind farm to other wind farms around the state of Colorado, and it's going to be quite a bit of tax revenue coming back to these districts.
Thank you, Ms. Amaro. Commissioners, any follow-up questions for County Assessor?
I'd just like to thank her for the, Ms. Amaro, thank you for the information you sent out to us regarding other wind turbine fields within the state of Colorado and the dollar amounts that was generated for those counties. So thank you for your time and your efforts today.
Thank you.
And
you're welcome.
If your time allows, would you please remain available should we have any additional questions?
Yes, I will stay on.
Thank you so much. And now,
you're welcome.
At this time, I'm going to call on anyone in opposition of this project. Please come up to the front, get sworn in, and again, the same process. Jim Names.
Do you solemnly affirm under the penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name one more time.
Jim Names.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having us. I'm looking out at all my neighbors, and I respect their rights too. I believe that their property rights are valuable, and we've got great neighbors, and this isn't about neighbors or not neighbors. So primarily for me and probably for Mr. Swanson, we I don't know if you could put the map up of the properties. We are adjacent to the property, very, very close. So, I mean, we're right at the highway, and the way the map shows, we have 25 towers within our yard. And so our main thing is not objecting to what somebody else can do to the property, but our main driver in our area and the property value is driven on hunting, recreation, and that. So I've spoken to 3 appraisers that estimate the valuation of that property to be 15 to 40% because it went from the most attractive hunting property or kind of an investment to now it's adjacent to something that's not desirable. So where these towers would set up from our house is one in the right here to the south and one in the north. So wherever the sun goes and whatever's coming, and the noise will all be coming right to it. So number one, the setbacks need to be. I understand that these are projects that are going to go on, but these setbacks should be way further than they're talking about. The reason I say that is that who would want one? When you look out the window to look at sun, I see a tower. When I look to the northwest, look up there, I see a tower. And I can't get away from it. So all my windows face to the east and to the south. And so those are just issues that I have. I'm fundamentally against them. I understand the profit and the potential for long-term benefit, but that's just my opinion. And that's okay. We all can make our decision on what we think on that. I think the long-term effects are negative, but I could be wrong. But we won't last long enough to see it. But just for us personally, it's a major thing. And so, we are affected by being adjacent to it. Not that I wouldn't care about the financial part of it, other than it affects our value. So those are just things. And I had several questions about so if you do sell this lease, does the responsibility of the bond continue on as the sales?
You directed to us and we'll follow up with the questions.
Okay, so if the lease is sold, is there a guarantee that that bond will continue on? And you say you measure the noise, but who determines what's noisy? If I'm the one living in the yard, if you measure it, it doesn't matter to me on that. So my question on the taxes was, it's a lot of money. We haven't heard a figure yet. I figured it out, it could be $400,000 a year if everything's in prime, I guess. But that's about what I see. If I'm wrong, tell me, but it looks like about $400,000 a year. If it's all up at 100% operation. So it won't be. So we need to have figures. It'd be like us making this decision on a multi-million-dollar deal in 2 hours a month ago and 2 hours today. Nobody make a decision on that quick. But that's just how it affects us. Let's see what the other communities, a lot of things would have been answered. But the total tax income compared to what it's going to cost, and I do see the benefits for a lot of neighbors. The income, there's a lot of things that is going to benefit. But in reality, the rest of the quality of life if you're adjacent to it, is a completely different deal. The other question I have is how much traffic is going to come from the north, how much traffic is going to come from the east. So those are just, but maybe if you can address some of those. Thanks for
Well, there, Mr. Mayor.
If you have questions for me right now.
I do. So hearing your testimony regarding the vision or the nuisance of being in your line of sight, and 15 to 40%, is that decrease in appraised value? My question to you is there a reason other than your personal preference why you're not a part of the solar farm? Was it not outside your mapping, but so close to your home? Is there a conservation easement prohibiting you from being part of it, or is it just a personal preference?
Just personal preference, yes. Yeah, we're just adjacent to it. So on that map where you see on the left-hand side where you see that second dot, we're just north of there. Well, come south there. Come south, right north of there now. Right up there, and then stop and go to the highway. And we're right there.
you're on the other side of the highway. Like, drop that distance adjacent, so it's like within, not even like a quarter mile.
So it's not 1,500 feet?
Oh, it's over 1,500 feet, but my point being is that is way too small setback, like where you both live. I'm sure there's not a tower that close to you. Like in Evergreen, Colorado, there is a tower. I'll guarantee you there's a tower out there. So my point being, it's all relative to where you live and if it's you affected. So I'm not mainly making my point of the people that are affected by being there is my big objections.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for Ms. Amato, if you may.
Please.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Amato, are you still on?
Yes, I am, Commissioners.
Thank you. A question I have, I don't know if you heard Mr. Mayor's testimony regarding the 15 to 40% decrease in appraisal valuation. In the other areas, we've got a few wind turbines in Los Animas County. Have you seen that assessment value go down for those properties that your 10 years assessment?
As far as I am concerned, because I only deal with ad valorem value, what I believe Mr. Mapes is referring to is resale value. So if he's spoken to 2 or 3 appraisers, that's their opinion of value. I haven't had any sales come through with wind turbines yet for me to validate any increase or decrease in property value.
Thank you, Ms. Amato.
Thank you. So now I will ask the questions, and I think you took pretty good notes. One of the questions that has already been answered by the Los Animas County assessor. The traffic increase pre and post construction.
Yeah, so my notes were, Mr. Mayor's question was about traffic from the northeast, how much. I think I had explained this with like the bridges and the weight restrictions. Like once we know what the final turbine numbers will be, again, we're marketing this project, we're marketing up to, or trying to sell as much as up to 1,000 megawatts for the project, 300 turbines in Los Angeles County. But once we have an off-taker and we have that intel on how many turbines we're talking about, we'll work with that turbine delivery company on like where they're bringing these turbines in from. They may be coming in from the south. We have some areas where we keep turbines, I believe in western Kansas, where they could be coming in from the north, but they're coming which routes. So at this point, admittedly, it's kind of hard to tell just which direction they'd be coming from, but it's certainly coming in, either from La Junta from the north or Springfield from the east. We'll know that as we evolve the number of turbines and the deliveries that we'll be taking and the haul routes that we're working on with the county. But I mean, that's the most likely, to this point, most likely direction that these will be coming in. But as far as like the numbers on each route, we won't know that yet at this time.
What is the flexibility from next era to take his concern about having that in his immediate periphery? I mean, within, you mentioned quarter of a mile. Is there any possibility, opportunity to relocate those? I mean, they're in somebody else's property, we understand that. And that is the concept of the whole thing. But how do you respond to that comment?
So, I think his concern, and this person, I want to make sure I recognize that he is a valid concern about what he said. I think it comes back to property rights, right? I think we could put in a more setback, but that would take turbines away from his neighbor being able to have them. So I think it is a tough discussion to have that we'll probably have to include both parties. But we try not to get involved between who can monetize their property and what between 2 landowners, right? I mean, we hope they can work that out, but that's my response, right? That I would have to take turbines from his neighbor to move it away for his benefit, which gets right back into the who has rights to do what on their property. So we just try to follow whatever, there's local requirements for setbacks, we try to follow those, or state, which in this case I don't believe there are, So we do our best view from what safety standpoint is, and that's 1.5, at least 1,400 foot. At least get there much further than 1,400 foot, but that would be my response, Commissioner.
And as far as the last question that you had, it's the total taxable income. I think that's,
Yeah, so to the assessor's point, the state does provide that assessed value. So what we do is we basically provide a spreadsheet that looks at how many megawatts we have on a project, what our contract value is, what the capacity factor is, so like how much is it generating, and that gets baked into the equation with the actual turbine price. We provide that to the state to validate, and then they provide that amount to the county. So what we're estimating for this project, we're looking at a total, basically, cost, as far as an assessed cost, almost $700 million. In talking with the county and this district, 89C is the tax district out in Kent, there's a 26.4% tax rate of that material amount that the county gets from the state. It's a 26.4 tax percent, and then based on the mill levy out there, that's what got us to the $28.5 million in total taxes over 30 years. So feel confident that we've been talking with the assessor's office that that's our number. I feel confident in providing what the numbers we provide to the state are accurate. That number assumes a flat mill levy and also assumes a flat tax rate for 30 years. So certainly, if those rates increase, we're going to have different values. But again, at this point, our total life of the project came out to $28.5 million.
So approximately 900,000 or so.
That's right, about 970.
And want to answer your question about traffic after construction. It would be your standard pickup trucks just going around doing routine maintenance. Our wind technicians actually go up in these towers and they just need their regular trucks to get around. Now, if there's something that we need to replace, then there would be a heavy haul or something that needs to come in. And that would also, we would coordinate with you guys and get the necessary, whatever permits we need to move that forward. But you could just expect standard next area trucks.
Just on the economic impact for the community, to add Mr. Nake's question, will the turbines be purchased locally from the Pueblo Vestas facility, or where will your turbines be coming? What states are going to be producing them?
So we haven't determined that yet. I think that's still a part of our supply chain mechanisms that we're trying to figure out. But it could be Vestas, it could be GE, it could be a couple of options that we have.
Thank you. Any other questions at this point? Let me call on somebody else if you wish to provide comment in opposition of this project, either online or in the audience.
Hello.
You solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name.
My name is Nathan Jones.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Commissioners, for having us. I'm here on behalf of several of the mineral holders that have stake in this area. I myself and my family have around a little over 20 sections of interest in minerals in this area. And as far as the notifications, I did get the letter on June 23rd or thereafter, but I know I've had several of members of my group that did not get notified. So I don't know if that's an inaccuracy from the assessor, but I would like to just extend that offer to give me time to kind of debrief them on what I found today and let them know kind of why this meeting's gone. As that goes, as having mineral interests, I know they kind of said like, so there would be 6 acres in every section that was impacted from per 4 or 5 turbines. Is that correct? So does that include all the infrastructure, all the wiring, all the transmission lines, all the roads and everything that encompasses all of these turbines? Or is that just the footprint of the actual base of the area that's affected? So if you're looking on my terms, so we've been doing studies and we've researched and we have high interest in possibly mining for helium in this area. There's a huge pocket of helium that they've discovered recently in this area. We've also got bentonite as well as oil and gas. We actually have some active gas wells on our property. So I would like to be provided kind of a more in detailed survey of exactly where this impact is going to be and the effects it has on me and the ability for me to mine my property that I've been. And that being said, I think it gets forgotten that our taxes that we've been paying for several decades to this county from our mineral right taxes, it seems like that's all forgotten. They're talking about all the money that's provided from the company, from Next Era. Is it forgotten as a mineral holder that every year we're obligated to pay in, and that all that money goes into the school and fire districts and roads, and so that I'd like to just remind the commissioners that we would like to not be forgotten as mineral stakeholders. And it's important to us that our ability to conduct our plants are not inhibited by this production of this wind or solar. And that being said, we would like time for us to kind of convene, and because the way I was told through the short amount of time I had to get with some legal advice is the mineral holder holds precedence over any new development. So I would like, and it sounds like they owe you some studies on some other stuff for the surface landowners and stuff. So I'd like to just ask the commissioners for a little time so that we can come back with our findings and kind of present that. Because it kind of seems like as a mineral holder, we're kind of getting brushed under the rug, so to speak. So.
Chairman, if I may. Mr. Jones, thank you for being here today and for your testimony. Question, you stated that you're a mineral right owner. Are you also a service right owner, property owner?
I am not. My granddad came over in a covered wagon when he was 1 year old. They homesteaded, they sold the ranch, but I inherited, we kept the minerals in the family.
So you would have to go through the same type of process of an SUP to explore your mineral options? Or
yeah, we've looked into that. There's been several studies. I know they talked a little bit about their environmental studies. I'm surprised they haven't brought up any kind of bio or cultural sensitive studies, surveys that they've done, or archeo or paleo. I know that's something that is required with the amount of studies that I've done with what we were going to look into exploring. So I know that it's a cultural sensitive area. So I would assume that you would probably require that. I might be on the state level, but I don't know if the county requires that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sir, any questions, Mr. Jones? Okay.
Thank you for your
Please
time.
remain in the room in case we have some additional questions.
No problem.
Mr. Haas, would you like to move first?
solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Jordan Bunch. I'm with Holland and Hart outside counsel for Nextera. And I just want to respond to a handful of the issues that Mr. Jones just brought up. So the first is with respect to cultural and archaeological studies. Those were included in the application. I believe you all saw that. If you need any follow-up on that, we're happy to provide it. But those were done as a part of the application as required by the code. I want to correct what I think is a misstatement of law, which is that the mineral owners are perceiving in their priority with regards to the property. It actually is a code obligation that both the surface owners and the mineral owners have to accommodate each other. It's called the doctrine of reasonable accommodation. And as Mr. Haas spoke to earlier, we recognize that that is an obligation of Colorado law. There's no right for a service owner to lock out a mineral owner entirely and say we have paved over the entire property and you cannot reach your minerals. That simply is not allowed in Colorado law. We have to provide reasonable accommodation. What is not in the law is that under the county code, surface use agreements with mineral owners are not required as a
condition proceeding to approval of an SUP. That's outside. What you all need to see under the code is that we have noticed the mineral owners as required by statute, both state and county, which were done here, and copies of those certified notices were provided to Mr. Lucero. If the assessor doesn't have up-to-date records, that is actually an issue with the assessor. It's the mineral owner's obligation to keep the assessor informed of their addresses. To the extent that they have not let the county know their addresses, the applicant has no way of knowing what those are in order to notify them. We can only know what they've told the assessor. So in this case, as Mr. House has alluded to, we don't have a situation where you have solar panels, like you all saw last month, where we had a very similar conversation, where there can be there's really prohibited access to the land underneath, and you need to set aside drill pads in order to accommodate mineral owners. In this case, we have wind turbines, as we've expressed. They're much more spread out. There is infrastructure between them, but there's large swaths of acres of land on these sections that will not have any infrastructure on them, that are perfectly able to be mined and be accessed by the mineral owners. So certainly, it is NextEra's intention to continue to work with the owners to let them know as we do site those final turbines, and we know where that's going to be. That's something that we work with the owners on, but that should not hold up the approval of the application. That is really something that is outside of the application process. Are there any, if there's any additional questions?
I think, one of the point of clarification, I think the question was that 6 acres is what the infrastructure is going to pretty much cover. And of course, that's not to include the underground line that is going to be running from one tower to the next.
And that I will let Mr. Haas.
Yeah, so that 1 to 1.5 acres per turbine is average. Typically, we co-locate our underground collection with our access roads, so it's in that same footprint. Not always the case, but we try to minimize, and as much as we try to minimize access roads, less gravel, less driving, we also try to minimize the collection cable as well. So I would say as a rule of thumb, that collection is kind of umbrella under that acre and a half because it is technically co-located next to our access roads to turbines. Now, there are events where we may have cross-country between turbines where there is no access road, but we're collecting those, we're connecting those with collection. But that, again, as an average per section or per turbine is still within that 1.5 acres. We're looking at collection trench about as wide as this cable that, it's a very, very small footprint when it is not co-located with that access road. So we still hold that kind of 1.5 acre per turbine line.
And also, I want to add that the underground electric line is just like the other underground pipeline or utility that you have, right? We can work with, mineral owners as they come up with plans to, even if we move a road or move a collection route or something of the sort, it's determined that specific footprint that won't be allowed to be able to be disturbed once it's built. So that's the reason why it's such a highlight on, hey, this is what the turbine's going to go, because it's hard to move a $3 million machine.
And just to clarify, it's 6 acres on a quarter section?
Depends on how many turbines are there, right? The average is 3 to 4 turbines, and the average is you take up 6 acres of a section. I'm sorry.
So within a whole section, we're talking, say, about 2 acres.
Ms. Bunch, one of the questions, where can the public access the archaeological, paleo, or any type of the NEPA studies that have been conducted?
The way that we normally handle that is we would provide those to the county, and then the county could provide those to any citizen who's interested in seeing them. We'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. I don't take back any further questions right now. Thank you so much. And remaining in the room, should we have any follow-up questions, let me call once again. Anybody else that would like to provide public comment in opposition of this particular project? Morning, sir.
Terry Swanson.
Solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you, sir. Sir, your name again, sir?
My name is Terry Swanson. I'm an adjacent landowner, and there's a couple of things I'd like to point out as just observations of today's process. We have a lot of detail and a lot of good questions and a lot of things that needs to be considered. And some points have been made that are very, very powerful and very accurate. One of them being property rights. And I by no means want to step in between me and my good neighbors when it comes to property rights. I respect those very much, very much. My family acquired their little ranch late in the game. We've only been there 20 years. And we reside in Baca County, in the east part of Baca County, and we have a ranch there that Mr. Mapes helps us manage. When we bought that ranch, we were thinking about, we appreciated the landscape. And one of the points that I would like to emphasize is from a 10,000 foot view or a 30,000 foot view, whenever you industrialize the prairie, which that's what we're really considering doing here, is a huge industrial project. Or whenever progress demands industrialization, and it has all over the world, you change the landscape from one use to another. However, you can utilize part of the landscape with livestock. This is a unique thing in that. But what we're really talking about is a major land use change. And it's forever. As I was driving down County Road 56 with my grandson the other day, as you cross Mustang Creek, you can see the Santa Fe Trail tracks that were coming from the Grenada Cutoff to Fort Union. And I told him, take a really good look at that. And take a really good look at the landscape, the horizon. Because it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same forever. Now, I respect my neighbors' right to change the landscape. But I really want us to think about long-term as a government entity, as private individuals, is this really what we want to do? Now there's some benefits, big benefits. Benefits to our local community. Mr. Butler and Mr. Yoakum have accurately projected and told us what the benefits are. We realize that we're in a declining population and we have lots of economic stress because of that. All of those things I will herald and applaud the efforts of those to improve our own economic situation. But we're changing the landscape. We're changing the landscape. I'm a holder of a conservation easement. Put that conservation easement on a ranch for a reason. I wanted my family to be able to experience the Western lifestyle, the Western heritage, the landscape as it existed prior to development, and we've done that. And that's probably, no, it's in fact the reason we're probably not included in that red line, which is fine. I don't have a problem. Setbacks, I think, are important. If my house lied as close as Jan Mapes' house lies to the red line, I'd be really concerned about setbacks. And I'm not sure what those are appropriate, what's an appropriate setback. But I do know there's going to be some ramifications to the adjacent property. And I just ask us to take a serious look at whether they want to permanently change the landscape. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Swanson. Once again, another call for anyone that would like to provide public comment in opposition of this project.
solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please state your name.
My name is Ellie Noy.
Would you pull that down just a little bit? One more time.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
And your name one more time?
Ellie Noy.
Thank you.
I have no problems with private property rights. I respect them greatly. But when your private property right goes ahead and adversely affects your neighbor, where does that leave them? That's what's happening here with my friends. They bought that land because of the pristine nature there, beauty of that land. It will be destroyed forever for them. Going on from there, I have to applaud you guys for the research you've done, because you have, what I've got here in this pile of papers, you've covered most of it. So I'm going to go on to say these huge wind farms, these companies are getting billions of dollars in our taxpayers and subsidies and grants. We all know it. It may or may not be a good thing. I've not been around wind farms. Everything they say, they make them sound wonderful. But I'm going to bring up a case that you cited here that I have documented. There was a question about whether it was true or not. The broken wind turbine, the arm of the wind turbine in Marshall County, Kansas. This is documented by Kansas State Representative Carrie North. She has been fighting with the landowners to try and get that thing, to try and get it remediated. That wind, it was found broken. It's in the Irish Creek Wind Energy Center. It was found broken on April 16th of this year. The company who built this farm complex had not, as of May 29th, done or contacted anyone, any of the neighbors, any of the landowners about it. There was no remediation done. There's been no attempt to remove the broken blade or clean up the scattered fiberglass that's being spread by the mill, by wind and water. There's no cleanup. It's polluting acres and acres of land. They cannot graze their cattle. They cannot put up their hay. It's a serious problem. The company is NextEra. It has not been addressed. So I have got all this information. If you would be interested in looking at any of it, I'll leave it with you. It doesn't address just the problems. There's some other information in there too, but a lot of researchers would like it. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Mr. Noel. If you hand me those, Ms. Noel, you can give the report to the office director. Anybody else wishing to comment?
Solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You may want to move that up just a little bit.
My name is Jennifer Keeler. I am not a landowner to the adjacent wind project. We are about 16 miles west of Kim. We will, however, be right on the line of those flashing red lights. Again, I want to reiterate the same things as my friends have said about private property rights. We know and love the people that are wanting this done on their property. Again, my concern is what are the effects going to be to the surrounding community as a whole. I have a couple of comments about jobs and things like that for the school as well. But first I want to say that my main concern is what is it going to do to our weather patterns, to our microclimates. I have a degree in range land ecosystem science. I've I was born and raised on that ranch. I'm the 4th generation, my kids are the 5th generation. We want to ensure that we are able to ranch for generations to come. And what kind of research has been done on these massive wind farms? Like, I know that the one in Lamar's been there for a while, but it isn't this big. So on these massive wind farms, what are the climate, microclimate, the weather patterns, what are the effects on those, on the adjacent land? Because we all know that people can say, it's safe. It's not, you know, we've done some research, it's safe. Well, DDT was safe at one time too, or they thought. You know, there's lots of environmental things that we thought were fine to do, and then it turns out our progress has caused huge problems. So I'm not against progress. I just want to make sure that when you choose to implement some of these new technologies, which sound wonderful and great and like they're going to benefit our community, I've lived in Los Animas County long enough to see the effects of things we thought were going to be great for our county. And they end up making ripping roads, and we build and build and build, and then all of a sudden everybody's gone, and we have skeletons of buildings and things, and no money coming in anymore. And where did our progress get us? So along those lines, lots of things have happened in Kim where people have told us it's going to bring kids, it's going to bring families, it's going to bring jobs. Those jobs come, but no one stays in Kim. The people drive from Trinidad or La Junta or Springfield, and they come and work, and they leave, and they do not benefit our community in those ways that they promised they were going to. A limiting factor for people not staying in Kim is the fact that wives don't. You have to be a special person to want to live out there. And it's beautiful and it's wonderful, but a lot of people that are raised in the cities, they can't hack it. So all these promises are wonderful and they're great, and I hate to be the negative Nancy here, but let's be realistic. If this is going to happen, then how are they going to ensure that we do get benefit? Maybe a local contractor will get hired and he'll hire a few people, but then from there, and these 14 to 16 jobs, will they stay in Kim, or will they drive from Trinidad or La Junta or Springfield? Because that has been the historical, that's what happens. So you promise these families and these kids that are going to come to our community, and you rip up you mess up our horizon, and then for what? So those are questions I hope that you will continue to ask, and I thank you for all the research you've done.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. So, to Mr. Haas and Mr. Watson, a couple of questions that were stated in their weather patterns. Is there any research from the experience that you have in these particular projects that you can share with us as far as alteration of weather patterns and or any other impact to our weather?
Yeah, nothing definitive one way or the other as far as long-term impacts, as far as wind in general, and Keeler explained that these large wind projects, a lot bigger than they were historically. There's just not a level of research. I mean, even like you mentioned, recycling, that research is still kind of new as well. So, not to say that there won't be research continuing, but nothing definitive either way that I'm aware of.
Was there any research done in Lincoln County? So near Lyman, they have 540 wind towers over there. What's this one projected to be? 480, I think, total?
440 total.
40s. So it's a larger field than the one we have, and I don't know how long it's been in there, but it's been there quite a while.
Yeah, nothing that they've studied, nothing that we've heard from those commissioners. Neighboring Kit Carson, we were putting our third project in that county. I think we have a total of 50, this will be 650 megawatts. It's going to be about 400 turbines in that county. It has to come back, and so we think that's a good sign, but alignment turbines were installed, the first 250 in 2012. So it's been about 10 years now with that original batch. After that, so still again, just new information or very relatively young project.
And I'd like to ask, once again, for the record point of clarification, you mentioned that at the top of the tower, there's going to be a dome which will house a radar. And will only activate those lights at night, only when aircraft is present. Did I understand that correctly?
The radar towers are actually separate. So for a project this big, we expect maybe 2 or 3 of those towers. They're about 70 feet tall. They're not even really towers. Well, it's a kind of vertical structure. But we'll probably have about 3 of those throughout the project, and then they're synced with the actual light on top of the turbine. So the radar system itself is not on the turbine, but the 2 or 3 towers that will be established to throw that net over the project will be connected to those lights and will be activated when they detect.
So anytime an aircraft is going over that particular project, those 2 or 3 towers will send the message to the entire field, and then you'll have the 442 towers basically warning the aircraft.
That's correct. Just to clarify though, when that aircraft is flying over below a certain altitude, so if you have a flight of 40,000 feet, not going to activate.
What is the altitude in which it will detect?
That we will be working with the consultants in the FAA to establish what that altitude will be for this project.
And what is the duration of those lights?
Same thing. It goes out to a certain distance of the project. I think the one that we just installed, that one we have a project under construction here in Carson County right now, it goes out about a mile or so via surface, so that as the plane kind of enters that, it gives time to provide ample warning.
And once the aircraft is off,
out of a certain distance, those lights turn back off. So it's basically when it's within that kind of essentially bubble.
So it has to breach the bubble before it activates.
That's correct.
thank you. Let me make another call. Once again, anyone wishing to provide comment in opposition of this particular project, come down.
Solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please state your name.
My name is Linda Goodrich, and I don't know that I stand here today as a complete against the wind tower project. I'm going to reiterate a lot of what's been said. These people out here are my friends, my dear friends, and my neighbors, and I walked in here that way, and we will walk out regardless of the wind tower project. So I just wanted to point out a few things. I thought about this project and thought, man, if this is my chance to have a decent road, like, that's my first thought. We're out east of Cam, on the back of county line. You mentioned earlier, I'll call out Road 48 from Road 215 all the way to back of county, impassable road. Used to be a bus route, used to be a mail route, but there are still people out there. There are several families. We have cattle out there. That's an access road that needs attention. Road 215 from Andrews all the way north. Road 223 from Highway 160 all the way north. Road 52. I mean, they need attention. And I hate to think this might be the only way to get that. And I'm not disrespecting. I know that there's not many people to service the roads. I do understand that. I've looked at the maps. I was unable to obtain them from Mr. Haas. I had sent emails, but Mr. Lucero provided that to me, and I went through the maps of these towers. And my parents' place is on Road 223, and there's been someone at their home since the 1920s or before. And now there's projected 2 wind towers, less than a quarter of a mile, directly west of their home, and 2 directly north. They're not a quarter of a mile away, and so they're surrounded by 4. And that's a concern. I am aware of families in the Genoa and Lima area that vacated their homes after those projects came in because they couldn't stand the sound and maybe other factors. So I do think it's a concern. I'm all about private property rights, I understand that. But I do want to bring that up as a concern. I believe, sir, you would ask questions about the damages and if they would reimburse. And there's a very explicit crop compensation part in here, but there's nothing that I see that addresses cattle, fencing, decreased grazing, can't run as many head. So I mean that's a concern, and I hope my neighbors they need compensated if they can't run as many cattle. I mean, I'll be an advocate for them as well. I just think that needs to be addressed. One of you mentioned something about having a website so the area would know when the turbines are coming in and such. I don't think you've spent much time out there. Internet's not a real good weapon out there. So there may be some other avenues could be explored there if there is going to be lots of traffic coming in. I would speak true to the Marshall County things. I'm very familiar with Kansas too. The bond that they will issue, or you're asking for the decommission process, I would be curious as to what happens with that. Like if they vacate the project, you've got some money, or this is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that you would be holding so you could decommission that as a county. But if other things come up, I mean, we've seen that not much is attended to in that part of the county. My concern would be is that we would just be an oversight then, and it would just be towers after 30 years, and they would just be left. So, just a concern. The project I'm seeing is a 105,000 acre project, and the way I'm understanding it is they're putting in these towers and then putting cable underground. I mean, that's going on 105,000 acres. They're digging trenches through all that as well. Not certain. I just wanted to ask that. And then you just recently mentioned this radar, these towers or whatever. Are those landowners going to get compensated for those towers? These radar towers as well, not just the wind towers. And then I mentioned my parents' homestead and where they've been, but I also have another house closer to Road 215, and there's also a wind tower less than a quarter of a mile from it. And I just, I would hope that maybe there could be some consideration. I'm not saying the landowner doesn't need it or want it, but I like to have people living in these homes as well. I don't want to be forced out, if they can move back a little ways or something to not interfere with people being able to live in the Kim area. So those are just my concerns. I appreciate you listening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Me, Chair. For your concerns, a lot of those are, I think, personal property concerns with the contracts you have, correct? It's not so much a county or hearing, but they are valid concerns, and I think you have some concerns with some of those which we've noted throughout the year.
So for you, Mr. House, and so for House. When you're, I'm sure during your negotiations you've talked about the cattle increase in numbers that you're going to be able to run, or the property owners made aware of that?
Yeah, it's certainly a landowner decision on what they want to do. They can continue to graze overgraze a number of cattle, a number of head based on the production value of that property. Whether they overgraze it, undergraze it, we don't really get involved with that. What we do have is just compensation during the life of the project, that they can elect how to obtain that financially, and kind of their decision on just maintaining the level of grazing that they want to do. But we will compensate for crop loss as well. I think that was brought up earlier. I'm sure that was part of Mr. Rich comment, but yeah, anything that we're impacting that there is, we look at whatever the market value is for that land or whatever type of crop or grass that we're compensating.
So pasture land would be included in that?
Yes. So the rangeland, ag, it's they're farming, further work, corn compensation and compensation.
Thank you.
So either one of the two of you, help me dispel this, whether it's myth. There's a lot of literature on the humming sound of a wind tower. And Mr. Dorenkamp just sent out the state statute, whether it is the maximum permissible noise levels, what distances, and I know you have that chart within. And if you would care to respond to Mrs. Goodrich's question as far as, the sound of it, how impactful that's going to be, and then of course, the literature in instances indicates that people are having to move away from the proximity of these towers. So, and again, we go back to the private property rights of owners, correct? But can you?
Well, again, I think it comes down to siting. And historically, looking at maybe some of these older turbine technologies, older sites where maybe they weren't sited as far away from houses. The county code is 1.5, and so we're looking at maybe up to 600 foot tall, so that's about 900 feet away. Literature that we've seen, I think I explained like mid-30s to mid-40s, it's about the low 40 decibels at that distance. From residences, again, as a company, we go almost 50% beyond that to that 1,450 feet. So we're down to about 30 decibels. So that's kind of how we base our siting off of. As far as the effects, again, I can't really speak to other people, the effects that they got, because I'm not really sure how close their homes were to that, but again, as a company, we go site beyond, even in this county, what the distance from the property line requirement is.
Yeah, so one thing I want to add is all of these turbine locations are still preliminary. As Commissioner Haas mentioned, we still got to get the military to buy off of where they're going to go. We're still going to go to landowners and tell them where we're going to exactly put them. So what we have in front of you is like, here's all the possible locations we can put them to add up to the megawatts per CE. But there's still more work to be done within that boundary that we're permitting today, as to decide the exact spot of which turbines make it through and which don't.
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there is an opportunity for neighbors to continue to work with you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Let me make another call for anyone wishing to provide public comment in opposition of this project. One last time, I want to call on anyone either online or present to provide public comment. And
yeah, I'd like to comment. Don Mahoney.
Ma'am, I need to swear you in.
Yeah, you can swear me in. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am. Do you solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
I own mineral right in Los Animas County, quite a bit of it, and I sat in on the initial meeting a while back that this group had, and I continue to have concerns. Nobody's really provided any sort of answer. First of all, not all of the, this would be a question to the council, I think. Not all of the surface owners have signed these agreements. So I don't know, when you go to vote, do they just get carried with your vote, like forced pooling or that kind of thing is one question I have. My mineral is under, well, two different areas actually, but it doesn't, the project area itself does not make sense to me. And I had asked this question initially, and it's just sort of a circle around the shape. There's no real setback, consistent setback given anywhere on it. And in particular, I had brought up, and I'm looking at 3052, that entire, almost that entire section is in the project area and is not, doesn't have any towers on it anyway. Same thing over to your, what is it? Here, over to the east, 3049. A lot of that just gets taken in, and yet the one gentleman who was just saying his house is across the highway on the west, they've got those towers bumped right up to the highway. So the project area doesn't make sense to me at all. And my concern is, for instance, I've got mineral under this 3052 up in the north. It's part of this project area. The mineral owner, the surface owner, has not signed a lease or an agreement with these people. And I've been approached by the helium companies. Now, the agreement, and I do encourage you all to read these short form agreements that this Next Era Energy has recorded. They've gotten a lot of the surface owners to sign, and they've recorded them. And they seem to be a blanket. It's difficult for me, and I talked to my attorney about it. They are both a blanket and specific type of agreement. So they have a lot of consideration for agriculture, but nothing for mineral. And it essentially says they're first on and it belongs to them. I mean, I encourage you to read those. I think at the time, when this last meeting, I asked that, that there be a specific, now these are short form agreements. They aren't the final ones that evidently the surface owners are going to sign with Next Era. Those that want to, but I was encouraging you all to insist that there be consideration for the mineral owner's access directly in these agreements. And I think it will save everybody a lot of court time in the future and a lot of headaches. I mean, that's what I see. And for them to say, yeah, the footprint of the tower is however many acres or something, that's fine. There is a lot of infrastructure, and they're also not talking about these, what do they call them, generated collection, their whole collection system. It does have some other permanent structures and miles of other wiring and stuff. And for a helium company or to come in, for instance, they run their infrastructure too. So I think that it is best to have a real understanding of that there is intended cooperation with the mineral development that's likely to happen in that area. on these agreements is what I'm saying. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Mahoney. Would Mr. Haas or Watson would like to respond to some of the questions?
I'll just take a few moments to respond. So the first is, I just want to be clear about what a short form agreement is. That is a truncated, essentially summary of the key points of an agreement that is recorded. The reason that that's done is that there are, as a lot of the service owners here will tell you, these agreements are negotiated. There's a lot of detail in there that we don't necessarily want recorded and out there. It takes up, it clouds title. There's a lot of details in there that are specific to each property owner. So we record these short-form agreements just to give the world notice that there is an agreement. There's a lot of detail in there that's not in the short form. So I just want to be very clear about what that is, the purpose that it serves. The second is that it actually would be fundamentally inappropriate to include anything about the mineral owners in these lease agreements because the mineral owners are not party to these agreements. These are specific to the surface ownership and the surface development, which is why they're between the developer and the surface owner. There are separate agreements, usually you hear them called surface use agreements, surface accommodation agreements, surface waiver agreements, that can be entered into between developers or landowners and mineral owners, but those are separate. That would be an entirely different agreement. So it's not that they're left out of the agreement because the mineral owners are somehow being cut out, it's that they're not a party to that agreement. That's something totally separate. And as we've already discussed, that is outside of the purview of the criteria that needs to be met in order to get an SOP. There is also, as I mentioned earlier, there is a law that does require accommodation for mineral owners. So whether or not there's an agreement, that is a legal requirement. And certainly to the extent that you would like to make that a condition of approval, that this apply with all Colorado law with respect to minerals, that is certainly something we would be happy to accommodate because we would need to do that anyway.
At this point in time, anybody else, last call for anyone to provide public comment in opposition of this particular project, online or in the audience. Otherwise, I think Commissioner Luis Lopez has a very important motion.
Yes, Chairman. I would like, number one, to get some legal counsel and to go into executive session, but I would really like to take a 10-minute recess before we adjourn into executive session.
Second motion.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't read the statute, so we're going to take a 10-minute recess.
It comes back on the record and
We'll
then
come back to the
we'll-
record, we'll go into executive session.
Commissioner Hess? Commissioner Luis Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes, and I think all of us can use a little bit of a recess.
Luis, you guys finished the agenda, didn't you?
No, we haven't.
Oh,
Recording stopped.